All right. Testing one, two. Okay. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to Cool Beans Hot Stuff. Today is Mental Health Mondays, which means we're going to go over a mental health topic today. And today has got to be probably my most favoritist mental health topic that I have thought of since I've been streaming. This marks my 8th week of streaming is this week. So pray for me, pat on my back. Uh, and this definitely is like the best idea I've had for a mental health Monday so far. I think I've covered some pretty interesting topics. Some were a little bit lackluster here and there. I'm still getting used to the streaming thing, right? And the content creation. I'm still trying to kind of figure out best way to do it and all that good stuff. But this idea right here, I'm super stoked about. I'm super stoked to have you guys here to talk about it. Whoever finds this video, I'm super stoked for you to find it because I've definitely noticed after 8 weeks of streaming and making content. Oh, I got a burp coming. They come as soon as I start streaming. I spend all day long not burping whatsoever, and then the fucking minute I start streaming. I mean, it could be worse. I could just get like uncontrollable farts when I stream. So I guess uncontrollable burping is better, right? But anyways, this particular topic is exciting. I've definitely learned after 8 weeks of streaming that when I find a topic that I enjoy talking about, the streams go so much smoother. I have so much more fun streaming. And the streams at the end of the day end up being better. And I end up going for a lot longer too. And when I end up going for longer, I end up getting a few more views here and there. I think I'm not averaging a pretty big amount of viewers, but I think as far as like unique viewers and all that stuff goes, people who just pop in for a split second or whatever, I'm getting a decent amount here and there. So I'm stoked about that. I've been getting more views on my YouTube channel. I don't know who's watching live. If you're watching live, thanks for being here. I'm sure my cutie pie is watching. She's doing her crocheting and watching her man make an ass out of himself on the internet. So thank you, cutie. Glad to have you here as always. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thanks for checking it out. I hope you enjoy the video and the content. I have a lot of awesome information to share with you guys, a lot of good stories to share with you guys too about this particular subject. And I hope you get something out of it. And if you do and you enjoy the video, please give a like and subscribe to the channel. That helps my video reach more viewers. So maybe I can go out there and give more people useful information that might help them out in life. That would be super cool. So, yeah, anyways, in any case, thanks for showing up. Today, we are talking about my favorite self-help books. I've created a self-help book list, and these are my top. How many did I put on here? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, eight, with three. What would you call that? Three honorable mentions. So these are my top 8 self-help books, and they're kind of ordered. Not like super duper ordered. It's not like a strict ordering, but I did have a reason for where I put them on my list. Notice these aren't the title of this video is not the best self-help books. It's not. I didn't even really title it my favorite. I just called it self-help book list because that was easier, shorter. Had a bit of rolled off the tongue a bit easier. But it is my favorites, right? So this isn't the best. When it comes to anything mental health related, what helps people, particularly when it comes to advice, which is mostly what a self-help book is. If you think about it, most self-help books are just advice, right? It's some person out there discovered some way of thinking about life or thinking about some aspect of life that helped them out, and they want to share it with you. And so they're giving you their advice. And advice, it's different from person to person, meaning what works for one person is not going to work for another person. Best advice I was ever given is be careful whose advice you take, because a lot of people just like to hear themselves talk. A lot of people just like to pretend like they're smart, and they just want you to feel like they know something you don't. And some people have good advice. It's just not advice that you should follow because it's not going to help you out in this moment of your life, right? If you're, a fucking MMA fighter and somebody is giving you advice on how to be a assertive person, not take shit from nobody, chances are you don't need to hear that advice, right? I mean, if you're an MMA guy, if you fight MMA, chances are you don't need that advice, right? It's like, bro, I'm okay with that. Thanks. Like, I know exactly how to not take shit from people, right? So, appreciate it, but I'm good, dog. So, advice changes from person to person. What works for one person is not going to work for another person. Self help books are the exact same way, right? So, self help books work exactly the same. There's a lot of people out there writing self help books, which is why I wanted to make this stream. There's so many motherfucking self help books. It just never ends. People are just constantly coming out with more and more self help books, more and more psychology books, things you should be doing that you're not doing, and your life is fucked up because of it. And some of these people are just they like to hear themselves talk. They're just writing to write. They just want to appear smart. They want to say, "Hey, look at me! I wrote a fucking book." So that's what some people are doing. Some people are just after the money. They don't really have good advice. A lot of people, particularly I've ran into, a lot of people just recycle ideas from other self-help books, and they're not saying anything original. It's unfortunate, but for a lot of self-help books, you could read maybe 5 top books. If you read all 8 of these self-help books, I guarantee you that you will, if you continue to read books afterwards, you will start running into books that are just recycling the information that these books are going to give you, because that's what a lot of people are just doing. There was a huge self help market, kind of exploded, got started in the 80s, exploded through the 90s, and got even bigger in the 2000s. And then in the 2000s and 10s, I feel like it slowly kind of started slowing down, but it's still a huge market. I don't think it's where it used to be, but it's still a huge fucking market. And it is much easier to write down a bunch of shit you read in somebody else's book than it is to, sit and write, for example, a fictional novel, right? Writing down and plotting an entire fucking story, or writing a nonfiction book about a particular subject matter that you have expertise on is a lot more difficult because you have to build up the expertise. Yeah. Like, you actually have to have expertise in that topic in order to write the book on it and have it mean anything, right? So, it's much easier to just read a bunch of self-help books and then write your own self-help book. Okay. So a lot of people are doing that. And unfortunately, it leads to just a continuous recycling of ideas. Some self-help books are just bad. Some self-help books are going to give you advice that it's just bad fucking advice, dude. Like, it's either like, I would like, potentially disproven information, right? Like, this used to be a particular train of thought in like the 90s. And then psychologists came around, started testing this on people, and realize this is a horrible way to think of the world, right? You should not take this advice. You should not follow this particular mindset. And so a lot of self-help books, including even some of the bigger ones, you're going to find if you go look up lists on the interwebs, some of those self-help books that'll be listed on those websites are super old, and a lot of the information in them is outdated, and it probably wouldn't behoove you to follow some of that advice nowadays, because you're living in a different world where things are just slightly different. It doesn't mean the human psyche changes per se, but it means that the problems that a lot of people are facing nowadays are different than the problems that people were facing in the 80s. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it makes sense. And, there was another point I was going to make, but I can't fucking remember what it was. Some of the information is outdated. Some of it's just plain ass wrong. Oh, and some of it is good information. That's what I was going to say. Some of it is, again, good information. It's just not good information for you. Again, if you are a studly stud, super handsome guy, right? All the girls just love you. You got the sexy beard and the big muscles and the awesome Godzilla shirt. So all the girls just want to date you. Well, then, going out and reading a book on how to handle rejection is probably not going to help you, because you're not going to be facing a lot of rejection in your life. So, okay, you get rejected once or twice, and maybe you throw a little hissy fit over and embarrass yourself. But if that only ever happens once or twice in your life, then it's not really that big of a fucking deal. But if you say you're just an ugly, hunch over, just gremlin ass looking Fazimoto motherfucker, right? Which, if you are, unfortunate, I feel, I'm sorry for your circumstances. But if that's you, or you're closer to that, I mean, all jokes aside, like, for a large portion of my life, I actually felt much closer to that than I ever felt to being like some sort of sexy beast man. But if that's who you are, right, then you better figure out a way to get over rejection. Find a way to make rejection not hurt you on an emotional level. because you're probably going to experience a lot of it. And you don't want to find yourself in a moment in your life where you think, fuck it, I'm just going to give up because of all the rejection. It's too hard. So instead of going out there and doing the work to actually find someone who loves me and my Quasimodo hump and all of that good stuff, loves me for who I am, I'm just gonna forget about it and give up on it. That's horrible. That's sad. Don't do that. You deserve to be loved. It doesn't matter what you look like. If you're a good person, you deserve to be loved. And you deserve to find somebody who cares about you. So it would be horrible advice to just give up, right? Instead, it would behoove you to go read that book on how to figure out how to handle rejection and stuff like that. And so a lot of those self-help books are specialized like that. And I've read a lot of self-help books. Okay. This is why I wanted to do this stream. I just pulled up because I made sure that I had every book on my list on my Audible so I can go through the chapters and kind of remember, because a lot of these books I read years ago. We're almost getting close to 7, 8, 10 years ago was when I went through my big self-help kick, like 26, 27. I'm about 35 now. So that's when I went through this whole kick in my life. So I made sure that I had every book on here so I could kind of go over some chapters, just remember some chapter names to kind of help me remember what was in a lot of the book, what big parts of the book really stuck out to me, and keep me on the same page with you. So as I'm going through these books, I'm giving you guys accurate information and all that good stuff. But, so minus just these books that I have on my list, those 8 books, I have 30 other self-help books that are in my Audible that I did listen to that are different than these 8 books on this list, right? So that's 38 books that I've listened to, read and listened to. And there's many more that I read that I didn't end up liking. A lot of these 30 books on my self-help list, that's why it's down to 8, because a lot of them that are even in my Audible, I didn't end up liking the majority of them. So I picked the 8 best, but I've read at least, I want to say 45, 46 self-help books over the last 10 years. Okay, so when I say I went on a self-help kick, I went on a self-help kick, right? Like, some motherfuckers binge watch TV, Yellowstone, Game of Thrones. They almost quitting their fucking jobs so they can sit there 8 hours a day and watch that shit, right? I did that with like self-help books at that point in my life. I was like super intense on, wow, this is cool. This is awesome. I was in a place in my life where I needed good advice. I didn't have anybody around to give me the kind of advice that I needed. And I didn't know what kind of advice I really even fucking needed, right? You don't know what you don't know, right? So I didn't even know what was helpful and what wasn't. I was going through therapy and getting a lot of good help in that direction. And that's what kind of opened the floodgates for me to go looking around at other people's advice, looking for other people's advice and keeping an open mind about it. And I binge watched that shit, man. I fucking Rick and Morty'd that shit. Man, I just sat there all day long reading self-help books and getting whatever I could out of it. And ultimately, these 8 self-help books that I got for you guys today ended up being my favorites. Okay. And so long story short, I just made a whole big ass tangent there. And it was all just to say that this is my favorite self-help books list. Okay. That doesn't mean it's the best. It doesn't mean that they're going to be your favorites. It doesn't mean you're going to agree with me. You probably read some of these self-help books. I would imagine if you clicked on this YouTube video to hear about this, I'm sure you've read something into some kind of self-help book, and you might have heard of some of these self-help books, and you might completely disagree with me on it. That's totally fine. If anything, give me a reason why in the comment section. Let me know. I do have the advantage of being a relatively small well, not even relatively. I'm just as small as the YouTube channel can get right now, which is good because that means I have time to go through my comments and actually respond to people and chat with people about it, which was mainly the whole point of me doing the live stream, was to actually chat with people in real time about these kinds of subject matter, right? But I'm still happy to do it in YouTube comment section. So if you come across this video on YouTube and disagree with me, then just let me know in the comments, and that's bound to happen, at least with somebody who watches this video, for fuck's sakes. So there's going to be books here that you probably read that you disagree with. Some of these books might sound appealing to you. You might read them and say, fuck off. That was a shit book, Tony. You suck at this. And that's okay, too. I don't suck at this. I mean, I don't suck at this, but these books helped me, is all I'm saying. Just giving you some helpful tips on some books that could help you, because they really helped me. And I'm going to go through each one of these books, give you some information on it, give you some information on the person who wrote it, let you know where you can go find these self-help books. And then I'm going to give you my 2 cents into it. I have some stories about some of these books, how I found them, how I came about them, and then go into how they helped me, what the big takeaway was for me, and then some pros and cons, because nobody's perfect and nobody's self-help book is perfect either. Once you get into a few self-help books, you definitely start realizing that you don't need to practice the entirety of the book in order to get something out of it. A lot of times you'll completely disagree with some aspect of the book, but then there'll be other chapters in the book where you're like, wow, this right here was exactly what I needed to hear. This was the advice that I needed, So I'll give you the cons of the book, the ideas that I disagree with, and the ideas that I thought were amazing, and why I think it's such an awesome book, and why I think you could benefit from potentially reading it. If you're here, you're looking for recommendations, I get that there's tons of YouTube channels that have already done this, so I'm not touching on any new ground here, but I don't give a fuck because this is going to be fun. So I'm excited, man. Let's go ahead and we'll jump into it. I got a lot of content for you guys. We're going to take a lot of time to do this, though. So we got all the time we need today to do this. I'll have a nice long stream out of this particular subject matter. And then maybe even later on a later date, I might dive into each book one at a time if this ends up being a popular video. But I'm already, we're 16 minutes into this, and I've just been talking and talking. So, which, in my defense, that is the whole point of having a stream, right? But still, I'm just talking about random shit, making random points. Let's jump into the actual list, and hopefully you guys get something out of it. All right. So the first book that I'm popping up on my list, this isn't, we're kind of working in backward order. This would be number 8 out of 8 books. Okay. Not number 1. The 8th book for my self-help book list would be The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Everybody has heard of this book. If you look at the ratings here on Amazon, 152,000 ratings on this book. This book is very, very popular, man. This book was released. This is a paperback that was released in 2026. I don't know when it was published, but I know that I read this book, and I want to say 2016, and it had already been out for a while, and it had been blowing up all over social media. It was a huge bestseller. People love this book, man. They I don't know when he released it. I want to say maybe 2012 or 13, somewhere in that area. And it got very, very popular. So everyone's heard of this book. It's been over 10 years, I'm pretty sure, that this book has been around. And it was a very popular self-help book. Really nailed the kind of the self-help market at that time, right? So in any case, yes, this is my number 8 pick. I got some information to go into it for you. There's where you can find it on Amazon. And as always, I'll have the link to every web page that I go over on stream will be in the description of the video. So if any one of these books really tickle your fancy and you think, fuck, I got to have that, there'll be an Amazon link to the book in the description, as will be all the YouTube videos and everything else I cover, right? So that's the book. Here's a little write-up from Mark Manson's website on the subtle art of not giving a fuck, to kind of give you a general idea of what kind of stuff he's going at. We'll read through the intro, and then I'll read each one of these little subtleties of his. We're not going to read this entire article because it's a long fucking article, right? So I'm not going to dive too deep into it. Just give you the little subtleties, is what he calls them, in the intro. So you can kind of get a gist for Mark Manson himself, how he writes, and what kind of stuff he writes about. And then I got a quick little YouTube video. Here's the man himself that we can go ahead and watch. So again, you kind of get an idea of Mark Manson, the author, and what kind of content he's going to have in this book. So, in my life, I have given a fuck about many people and many things. I have also not given a fuck about many people and many things. And those fucks I have not given have made all the difference. People often say the key to confidence and success in life is to simply not give a fuck. Indeed, we often refer to the strongest, most admirable people we know in terms of their lack of fucks given. Like, oh, look at Susie working weekends again. She doesn't give a fuck. Or, did you hear that Tom called the company president an asshole and still got a raise anyway? Holy shit, that dude does not give a fuck. Or, Jason got up and ended his date with Cindy after 20 minutes. He said he wasn't going to listen to her bullshit anymore. Man, that guy does not give a fuck. Chances are you know somebody in your life who at one time or another did not give a fuck and went on to accomplish amazing feats. Perhaps there was a time in your life where you simply did not give a fuck and excelled to some extraordinary heights. I know for myself, quitting my day job in finance after only 6 weeks and telling my boss that I was going to start selling dating advice online ranks pretty high up there in my own don't give a fuck Hall of Fame. Same with deciding to sell most of my possessions and move to South America. Fucks given? None. Just went and did it. And here we have a nice little illustration. Everyone just wants to be liked and accepted, except for Tim. Tim doesn't give a fuck. And I like that little flip of the bird right there. This is the kind of humor you could expect from this book, right? It's a little edgy, right? It's not like super offensive or anything like that, but it's a little edgy, right? He certainly likes the word fuck, that's for certain. And yeah, you could kind of glean that from the title, though, right? Now, while not giving a fuck may seem simple on the surface, it's a whole new bag of burritos under the hood. I don't even know what that sentence means, but I don't give a fuck. A bag of burritos sounds awesome, so let's just go with it. The point is, most of us struggle throughout our lives by giving too many fucks in situations where fucks do not deserve to be given. We give a fuck about the rude gas station attendant who gave us too many nickels. We give a fuck when a show we liked was canceled on TV. We give a fuck when our coworkers don't bother asking us about our awesome weekend. We give a fuck when it's raining and we're supposed to go jogging in the morning. Fucks given everywhere, strewn about like seeds in motherfucking springtime. And for what purpose? For what reason? Convenience? Easy comforts? A pat on the fucking back, maybe? This is my problem, my friend. This is the problem, my friend. Because when we give too many fucks, when we choose to give a fuck about everything, then we feel as though we are perpetually entitled to feel comfortable and happy at all times. That's when life fucks us. Indeed, the ability to reserve our fucks for only the most fuckworthy of situations would surely make life a hell of a lot easier. Failure would be less terrifying, rejection less painful, unpleasant necessities more pleasant, and the unsavory shit sandwiches a little bit more savory. I mean, if we could only give a few less fucks or a few more consciously directed fucks, then life would feel pretty fucking easy. What we don't realize is that there is a fine art of non-fuck giving. People aren't just born not giving a fuck. In fact, we're born giving way too many fucks. Ever watch a kid cry his eyes out because his hat is the wrong shade of blue? Exactly. Fuck that kid. Developing the ability to control and manage the fucks you give is the essence of strength and integrity. We must craft and own our lack of fuckery over the course of years and decades. Like a fine wine, our fucks must age into a fine vintage, only uncorked and given on the most special fucking occasions. This may sound easy, but it's not. Most of us, most of the time, get sucked in by life's mean trivialities, steamrolled by its unimportant dramas. We live and die by the side notes and distractions and vicissitudes. Vicissitudes, that's a new one. Okay, vicissitudes that suck the fucks out of us like Sasha Grey in the middle of a gangbang. Jeez. This is no way to live, man. So stop fucking around. Get your fucks together. And here, allow me to fucking show you. And then here's a couple points from the book. Subtlety 1. Not giving a fuck does not mean being indifferent. It means being comfortable with being different. Okay, big distinction, right? You don't want to be indifferent to everything that happens in life, but you do want to be comfortable with being different than everybody else. That's a very important one. Subtlety 2. To not give a fuck about adversity, you must first give a fuck about something more important than adversity. Ooh, that's really good advice. Really good advice. It is much easier to go do the daily grind when the thing you're grinding at is enjoyable, right? Like we were just talking, I figured out when I stream about topics that I enjoy streaming about, I can stream for 3 fucking hours. And here Mark's got me with throwing all my fucks out now. I can stream for 3 hours and my streams are much better, higher quality, right? It's much easier to deal with the bullshit of setting up streams when I'm setting up a stream I'm excited about because I'm excited to be doing it, right? So in order to not give a fuck about adversity, you need to find something you give a fuck about more than adversity. And subtlety 3, we all have a limited number of fucks to give. Pay attention to where and who you give them to. Pretty good advice. And so he goes through each one of those points. All 3 of those points are deeply explored in his book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. But this was just a good little rundown of some of the points, some of the types of things you're going to hear in his book. That humor goes through the entire book. It doesn't cease, which makes it a pretty easy read. We'll kind of get to that in a minute. You can expect a little fly in my face. Fuck that fly. You could expect chapter titles like, So Mark, what the fuck is the point of this book anyways? Or The Misadventures of Disappointment Panda. Or, but, if I'm not going to be special or extraordinary, then what's the point? He's got all kinds of interesting advice that he gives, and very interesting in his own patented, interesting, clever, and very funny, edgy way. Little Fly, get the fuck out of here, bro. I tell you. And so yeah, you can expect that from this book. That makes this book an enjoyable read for a lot of people, and I would imagine is one of the reasons why this book got as big as it did, because it was funny, it's entertaining, and it isn't chocked full of the, I suppose, stern academic reasoning that you might get from a lot of other self-help books, or the new agey goose fraba type voice that you'll get from a lot of these self-help books, which I got a couple of those self-help books on my list that do have that voice in it. Mark Manson's book is distinctly different in the sense that it's filled with this kind of edgy joking around while giving you really good advice, right? So here's Mark Manson again to teach you more about this. Here's 3 hard truths that will change everything. Let's give it a listen, see what he has to say. Oh, let me throw you over to the YouTube screen. Boom, subtitles. Okay, check it out.
Truths that no one wants to hear, but we all need to hear. So that's why we're here, to hear the difficult truths that we don't want to hear here, right here. Truth number 1, everything you believe today will one day be proven to be completely and utterly wrong or incomplete. When I was younger, there were times that I believed I was gonna be a professional musician, that I'd never get married, that a girl wouldn't even like me. There were times where I thought I was gonna get a degree in math or physics, that I was gonna go to grad school, that I was gonna go to law school, that I would never live in the United States again, that I'd never be a morning person. In every case, I was completely wrong. Intellectually, I went through phases where I was into Karl Marx, Ayn Rand, Sigmund Freud, and Friedrich Hayek. Now I think they're all a bunch of fucking Looney Tunes. Take a minute and think back to what you believed about yourself 5 years ago. Chances are you can think of a few things that you were wrong about. Now think about what you believed was true in the world 10 years ago. Chances are you're cringing a little bit. It's funny because we've all had this experience of remembering the way we were or the things that we believed in the past. And we get embarrassed, we feel ashamed of how stupid we were. Yet none of us stop to consider that the things that we are so certain are true right now, we're gonna feel the exact same way 10 years from now. And in 10 years, we're gonna look back with the same embarrassment and disgust at the stuff that we think is true today as the way we look back today at teenage Mark trying to wear hammer pants. So the next time you feel so sure of yourself, maybe step back for a moment and think, is this one of those things that I'm gonna be embarrassed about in 10 years? If the answer could be yes, then I don't know, maybe shut the fuck up. Truth number 2.
That is a really good advice. I feel like a lot of people in today's world could take that advice, right? It is always good to have that mentality of you're always learning. I'm always learning new things. I'm always improving who I am. I'm always trying to grow as a person. And a natural aspect of that, probably one of the more difficult to accept aspects of that, is the idea that, well, if I have to learn more than what I know now, then what I know now is incomplete or wrong. And a lot of people, you get on the interwebs, and particularly certain specific places on the interwebs, like say Reddit, for example, or Twitter, for another example, you're going to see a lot of people bitching and moaning and crying at each other for being wrong about particular things. And it's funny because you can watch these people being wrong in real time, being like, bro, I know for a fact you're fucking wrong. Like, I know the statistics you're bringing up do not exist because I've searched for them, or the study you're bringing up is a bullshit study and they've disproven it, or I have read a study that proves you are fucking wrong. You can see this in real time. And that right there is what always stops me from telling that person they're fucking wrong, right? If you went and looked at my Reddit right now, I've been on Reddit for like 5-6 years, and I get on it every day just to see what kind of stupid shit people are saying to each other because it's enjoyable. Here, I'm gonna go to my rant screen. I love getting on Reddit to see what kind of stupid shit people are saying to each other. And what stops me, if you went to my Reddit channel, I got maybe 8 comments and in like 5 years, right? And it's because every time I think I'm about to prove somebody wrong, I think, but what if I'm wrong? I'm probably wrong. I don't know. You know what? I'm just gonna let this asshole be wrong, and I'm not gonna like make a big deal out of it. And fuck it, who cares, right? There's that. Not giving a fuck, right? But see, clearly the book helped me a little bit. But yeah, so that's really good advice. A lot less people would be a lot less opinionated about stupid shit if they could just accept the fact that they're probably wrong on it anyways. And I have never watched this video, by the way. This is my first time watching this video. I had a general idea of what to expect because I've read a couple different books by Mark Manson. And I did a little bit of research on him when I read The Subtle Art because I didn't know who he was. That was one of my first self-help books that I actually read, which is why it is where it is on the list. But this right here, so these truths of his, these hard truths, are completely new to me in the sense that I haven't watched him give these truths. This truth number 2, most people are not evil, they're just stupid. This is a very powerful truth. I'm sure Mark is going to give it to you in a much funnier way to say, or in a much funnier way, but this is a very powerful thing to learn. It's one of the most difficult things I've ever had to learn in therapy. Learning that most of the people that hurt you, or I guess it's a different way to say it, most of the people that hurt you were not bad people. A lot of them were just stupid, scared, angry, hurt themselves. This is very much in the same line. Most people are not evil, they're just stupid.
Most people are not evil, they're just stupid. This definitely includes ourselves. A lot has been made about social media and how it affects our politics and our mental health. But I believe the most under-discussed effect of social media is how it promotes moralizing. And by moralizing, I mean encouraging people to make good and evil judgments about each other. A disagreement is when you think somebody's idea is bad, but moralizing is when you think that person is bad for having the idea. This mass moralization has grown to such an extent that I now believe something that I never would have thought possible 10 years ago, that we probably need a little bit less morality in the world, not more. What I mean by that is that we shouldn't act unethically. I think we should simply reserve judgment a little more often. Please refer back to truth number 1. We don't know what the fuck we're talking about. This truth is kind of a variation on something that's widely known as Hanlon's razor, which says, never attribute to malice what can be adequately explained by stupidity. But I'd like to add something to Hanlon's razor that I'll call Manson's addendum. And pretty much everything you see or read is some degree of stupidity. If we take truth number 1, that most of us are pretty much wrong about most of the things that we believe, and we combine that with Hanlon's razor, which says that most of the things that we perceive to be evil are actually just ignorance and stupidity, well, then it suggests that maybe we should be slower to moral judgments, not quicker. After all, if we accept that most of our assumptions are wrong about most things, then we should reserve our morality for only situations that are clear and obvious. Take the pandemic, for example. It doesn't matter where your politics are, it doesn't matter which country you're in, it doesn't matter what your personal beliefs are, your risk tolerances. You were horribly wrong about something at some point. We all were. The experts were, the amateurs were, the conspiracy theorists were, the scientists were. Everybody got something horribly, horribly wrong at some point. Now, you would think that this would encourage a certain degree of humility in the population, but we know how that turned out. Truth number
Yeah, that definitely didn't turn out that way for sure. Humility, I think, went down a couple shades after that. But this is another reason why I do like Mark Manson, why I do enjoy his book, why I think most people would enjoy his book, is because he is very apolitical. When he says he doesn't give a fuck about people, he generally means all people. But you can see, again, same thing. He brought it to the internet world, and that's a great place to discuss that second point. Back over here just for a split second. You can see that in any online, that's one place that I spend way too much fucking time on. That's one place that I could give a lot less fucks about is political pundits online. I watch a whole lot of different political pundits, ones I like, ones I don't like, and always go from some extreme of enjoying myself to getting pissed off at least 5 times a day over it. So I to be honest, what kind of inspired me making this book list is realizing that I need a little bit more structure back in my life. And I think it's time for me to reread through my self-help book list. And these 8 books were the ones that I picked out where I was like, you know what, these are the books that I need to reread again. So I thought I'd share this with you. But in any case, you go into the online political pundit space, you're going to hear no shortage of people calling each other evil on both sides of whatever political argument is being had, right? Oh, the left is a bunch of evil, what do they call them? Evil groomers. They're all a bunch of groomers who are trying to groom children to do horrible sex things, right? And a lot of times that's just not true. I mean, overwhelming majority of the time, nobody's trying to like groom a child to like have sex with them. That's not actually happening. That's just a mean thing that's said to make people on the left feel like shit about themselves. But you hear this on the left too. You go into the left political spaces, you're going to hear, oh, they're a homophobe, they're a racist, they're a Nazi, they're a fascist, they're a transphobe. Tons of words that they'll throw out. The right's got plenty more of theirs too. Soy boy, cuck, this, that, and the other thing. They got another whole set of their own things, bombs that they lob at the other side. But all of it is coming from a place of morality. You're moralizing about the other person, saying, oh, this person doesn't agree with me, therefore they're a fascist or a communist, is what people on the right would say. That would be the answer to the fascist, right? And in most cases, it's just not true. Like, the person isn't making there's no need to make a moral judgment on this person on this particular matter because they just have a different opinion than you. That's really all that. A lot of times that's just all it amounts to. So, truth number 3, I'll let him explain it because he does a pretty good job.
Number 3, the highest leverage behavior you can adopt in your life is to care about people and show them that you care. In the 1930s, the psychiatrist named George Vaillant started to collect data on a group of Harvard graduates. Now, he collected everything. He tracked their financial situation, their family situation, where they lived, what occupations they had, whether they participated in the war or not, whether people they knew died, whether they got promotions, whether they moved to a sweet-ass new house and bought a boat. Everything you can imagine, this guy tracked over decades and decades and decades. Now, while he was tracking all of this data, he also asked them basic psychological questions. How happy are you? How satisfied are you with your life? Do you have a sense of meaning and purpose? How are your moods? Do you fucking hate your kids? At this point, as you can imagine, they've collected a lot of data. So what did Vaillant learn? Well, in 2004, he said that he could sum up over 70 years of psychological data with one word: love. Fucking hair in my eye. Vaillant explained that over the decades, there was only one variable that he tracked that consistently correlated to a person's happiness and well-being. It wasn't money, it wasn't prestige, it wasn't winning awards, it wasn't where they lived, it wasn't how fucking sunny it was last spring. It was the quality of their relationships. And how do you cultivate better relationships? Well, that's a big topic for another video, but basically, you learn how to care about others, and then you learn how to show them that you care. It's not fucking rocket science. It's a simple willingness to be close to others, and therefore a willingness to be hurt by others. So when it comes to general happiness and well-being, this is the highest leverage skill that you can build in your life, to learn to care about others and to show them that you care, to build strong relationships built on trust, intimacy, vulnerability, and mutual respect, to essentially care and show that you care. And yes, my friends, that is a real puppy dogs and rainbows truth, and maybe we all need to hear it. This is Manson, out.
Get your puppy dogs and rainbows at the end of the video. Okay, so there's Mark Manson for you. I'll give him a subscribe. That was a good video. He did a good job on that. Pretty funny guy. Yeah, so let me bring it back over here. Again, I'm glad that my beard looks good today because we're going to be spending a lot of time on this camera. So that's Mark Manson's, one of his videos for you. So you can get an idea of what his kind of, like, I guess his writing voice is like, what kind of style he likes to write in. His book is just like that video. It's chock full of jokes. He's a really good storyteller. He's really good at finding relevant information, specifically relevant stories to whatever the point that he's trying to make is, which is makes his book easy and fun to read. So it's fun to read because he is a funny guy, makes a lot of jokes out of everything. But he does have good advice. Those three pieces of advice right there were really good pieces of advice. And he does come to the table occasionally with a study or two to kind of back up what he's saying. That would be one of the things I would kind of not give him a lot of points for. In the subtle art of not giving a fuck is there isn't a whole lot of studies in there to show that what he's saying is actually good advice. It's more coming from a place of this is kind of what worked for me. And a lot of times he structures it in a way and makes the case for it. And you're like, yeah, totally, dude. That sounds like good fucking advice. That is good advice. There's times where I disagree with his advice, times that I do agree with it. When it comes to advice that I agree with, which I guess we can get into that now, kind of my pros and cons of the book. Let's see. So his first piece of advice in the book, Don't Try, the first chapter, when I first got this book, first off, this was the first self-help book that I ever read, which, like I said before, is why it's the first self-help book on my list. This is an easy book to get into for people who are just starting their self-help journey. So this made it to the list because it is unique in the way that it is funny. Mark Manson is a really good writer, has really good stories. And if you are just getting into the self-help world, this book will give you all the good bits, a lot of good advice that you would otherwise find in a lot of other books. So there's nothing in here that is particularly different from what anybody else is saying, but he gives it to you in his own unique way, which makes it enjoyable. And it's one of the easiest books to get into. If you only ever read one self-help book in your life, this one would probably be one of the most comprehensive self-help book on my list, as far as giving you a lot of good pieces of advice and using a lot of funny stories to do that makes you want to follow along and keep reading the book. So that's in contrast to, say, a book like Meditations. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius is a massively popular self-help book, one that I truly loved and enjoyed. But it took me about three attempts at reading it before I could finally sit down and reading it, because it was so thick with knowledge that he's dropping on you with advice. Every single sentence is some well thought out like idiom or phrase or bit of advice that you need to almost like pause the recording or stop the book and sit and think about and ponder about. It's all really deep shit that he's giving you. Whereas with Mark's book, it's a lot funny. It's much funnier, more lighthearted, much easier to get into and let it roll. Whereas with the Meditations, it can be too much to take in at one time. You almost have to read a chunk of it, put it away for a while, let that chunk kind of soak in, and then pick it back up and continue reading. So Mark Manson's book here, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, the biggest reason I recommend it is because it's a really good, easy first self-help book read. And if it's the only self-help book you want to read, then it's a good one to go with, right? And so, and when it comes to this book itself, when I read it, it was my first self-help book that I read. And the first chapter almost made me put it down. I almost stopped reading it because the first chapter confused me so much. The advice of don't try, stop trying, you're trying too hard, was never advice that ever resonated with me. It never resonated with me because I'm definitely not that guy. I'm definitely the guy where you need to put in, and we have other people on this list whose books I enjoyed much better because they completely rival that advice. Guys like David Goggins is on this book. His advice is you need to give 110%, do the absolute best you can, pick out what you love in life, and go balls to the wall on it and do as much as you can. And for me personally, that is something that I genuinely enjoy doing. I genuinely enjoy getting wrapped up into the things I love in life. I can almost have nothing else working out for me in life, right? I could have like no friends, no girlfriend, no family, no relationships, no social fucking life, little money, live in a fucking roach infested apartment. And trust me, I've been at that point in my life multiple times, and I still found a way to be happy by sticking my head into whatever it was that I enjoyed doing and just doing it with everything that I had. And the feeling of accomplishment that I get from learning a new skill set or achieving something in life, that is a big thing to me. And it means more to me when I know that I put everything I had into it, right? So that, his first piece of advice in his first chapter totally threw me off. The idea of try a little bit less hard. you're trying way too hard, was not advice that I particularly followed. And I want to reread the book to see if I somehow mistook or misinterpreted what he was saying in that chapter, because that was about the biggest chapter that I was like, okay, you know what? I don't know if I like this dude. um, then he gets into, being less intent on emotions, not letting emotions fuck with you is pretty good advice. He has another chapter called You're Not Special. The idea of wanting to go out and be exceptional or extraordinary at something. Again, not advice that I was particularly a fan of. I was like, yeah, no, again, one of the things that I enjoy most in life is going for something that's shooting for a big goal that's up here. And even if I don't make it, going for that goal, just the process of shooting for something bigger than me means a lot to me as a person. It gives me a sense of fulfillment, right? It can give me a sense of neuroticism too when I'm doing really poorly at it. But that's something that's more I have to kind of control with my different subject matter. But so I particularly didn't find that advice particularly useful, right? But there was like the value of suffering. There's a really amazing chapter. He has a really good story in here that was really mind blowing to me and completely changed my perspective of the world and what I was taking seriously in the world. Completely fucked me up in a good way, man. Was he tells the story of Metallica and Dave Mustaine. And if y'all don't know the story, the quick rundown, Mark tells it way funnier than I do. But the quick rundown is Dave Mustaine was the original guitarist for Metallica, wrote most of their original music from their very first album. I forget what the fuck the name of their first album even was. I think it was called The Four Horsemen, was it? Metallica's first album. It's been so long since I've heard this album. Metallica's first Kill 'Em All. That's it. Had something to do with Killing 'Em All. Kill 'Em All was the name of their first album, and Dave Mustaine was their original guitarist who wrote the majority of that music. So, in any case, he recorded the first album with Metallica. Their first recording sessions, first album, recorded all those songs for them, played guitar on all those songs, and then woke up one day, had all of his shit packed. All the members of Metallica, they're all living in a house, which is very customary when you're recording bands. I worked in recording studios for like 8-9 years, and very customary for bands to live in a house paid for by the record label. One house with a lot of bedrooms, roommates for however long while they're recording. And especially if they don't live in that city. And all of his bandmates had packed up all of his shit while he was sleeping and told him, get the fuck out. You're kicked out of the band, Dave. And so Dave Mustaine, they gave him a bus ticket and his ass had to ride home on the bus. And then Metallica blew up and became the number one selling heavy metal band and is still to this day the number one selling heavy metal band that's ever the number one selling metal band in the world, right? Metallica. And Dave Mustaine took that very fucking personally, that he wrote all that music, helped them record that first album, and then they kicked his ass out. Was very, very pissed off about that, which most people would be, right? And spends the rest of his life hunting down. He starts Megadeth, another one of the four top thrash metal bands when thrash metal came out in the 80s. It was Metallica, Slayer, Anthrax, and Dave Mustaine's Megadeth. Immediately went out, started Megadeth with the sole purpose of beating Metallica. Be better than Metallica was his whole purpose in life. And unfortunately, it didn't go well for him. In spite of the fact that Dave Mustaine became a multimillionaire, he got super famous. Megadeth became, again, one of the four godfathers of thrash metal bands. He's a legend in the heavy metal world. I'm sure he's in the Hall of Fame. He's known as an incredible musician. Dave Mustaine struggled heavily with depression and sadness. Well, obviously depression, but struggled with depression and drug addictions because of his depression. His life was not a very happy life. It was, filled with this, essentially filled with this constantly being overshadowed by Metallica, the band that kicked him out right before they got big. He never got over that. And he compares and contrasts it with the story of one of the original Beatles. The first drummer to the Beatles had the exact same thing happen to him. He was the original drummer of the Beatles, was obviously drumming for the Beatles and all their original recording sessions on their first album. And then same thing, booted his ass out. And then they went on to become the fucking Beatles, one of the number one, highest selling artist period of all time, period. And he struggled with severe depression for a long time too, a few years, but eventually got over it and decided what he wanted to do was open up a bar. He found a woman that loved him, that he cared about. They got married, had a bunch of kids. He still went out and played drums in some smaller bands, but he never dedicated his life to getting back at the Beatles. And at the end of his life, I don't know at the end necessarily. I don't know if he's still alive or not, but in his old age, he was much happier. The people that knew him as an incredibly, genuinely kind and amazing person. He was happier. He had a family with all kinds of kids and grandkids and was just all around more pleased or satisfied with the life that he had lived, comparative to Dave Mustaine, who had like overdoses, had been in and out of rehab, had this serious depression for the majority of his life. And in spite of everything he had accomplished in his life, still felt unsatisfied because he never beat Metallica. And that comparison of those two guys fucking blew my mind. It was like, wow, and I researched it. I looked into it to make sure that Mark wasn't just making this shit up. And it turns out he's not. And that story definitely put my life into perspective, right? Because yeah, it's just that to me was something that spoke to me personally, right? So that was one of the cooler moments in his book, one of the cooler stories he tells. And you can expect all different kinds of stories in his book that make these points. Really cool, interesting stories about the world that help prove his point. And so, yeah, that's something to look forward to in his book. So I'll also say with Mark Manson, particularly when I first read his book, especially the first like 3 chapters, and I wasn't really feeling it, I went and did a little digging around on Mark Manson. And what I found was Mark Manson was kind of very similar to Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss wrote another sort of self-help book called The 4-Hour Workweek. And both those guys had a very similar trajectory in life where they got moderately rich in the 90s making websites that inevitably got purchased by Google or a bigger company, and which Google just used the website as a tax write-off. But they got a good payday out of it. Then they went around, traveled the world, lived specifically for the purpose of living in countries where it was much easier. The cost of living was much lower, so they could kind of live the life of a millionaire in a different country. Spent a large portion of their time doing both. I specifically Mark Manson, when he says he gave online dating advice, what he means is he was a PUA. He was in the pickup artist world of the 90s. And if those of you who don't know what that is, that was a whole subculture that came around in the 90s with the book The Game by a writer named Neil Strauss. Him and this guy named Mystery started this whole subculture of guys who were helping each other learn how to pick up women, how to become better at picking up women and talking to women and becoming playboys, essentially, right? And that spawned a whole self-help. That was really like kind of the beginning of the manosphere. Everybody's heard of the manosphere now. And some people are like, oh, the dreaded manosphere. And then other people are like, yeah, the fucking manosphere. And then some people are like, yeah, the fucking manosphere, bro. So whatever your thoughts are on the manosphere, that is where the manosphere kind of started, was those 90s PUA guys, the pickup artist guys, all inevitably went out, started their own classes, their own websites, in the case of Mark Manson, on how to go pick up chicks. And that was the advice that they gave. And Mark Manson, in his own book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, very clearly lines it out for you. He started his self-help dating advice website when he was living on his friend's couch, right? And so this guy made money, got successful giving other people advice. And he started giving other people advice when he was living on his friend's couch and had pretty much nothing in his life that he had succeeded at. And yeah, that was, the thing is Tim Ferriss and Mark Manson only got successful telling other people how to get successful, which is an odd thing to kind of say, because usually when you want to ask a person, how did you, for advice on how to be successful, it's because they've already achieved success, not because they're just really good at convincing other people how to achieve success. Reality was Mark Manson has always been funny. He's always had a really good writing style and a really good voice, and he's been somewhat of a comedian his whole life. He's very charismatic, very good speaker, and used that to his advantage and capitalized on, at first, the Pua pickup artist, online dating, self-help area, and then turn that into accomplishing something in the self-help world, right? So, I do put that out as a disclaimer because the reality is this guy, he's good at speaking, he's good at making jokes, he's good at writing good stuff. But unlike a lot of other people on this list where they gleamed their advice in life came from serious trials and tribulations or extraordinary feats that they accomplished, that wasn't where Mark Manson came from. His extraordinary accomplishment was convincing others that he knew how to achieve extraordinary things. And that was his extraordinary accomplishment. That's what he got famous for and what he still is famous for today. And that is why I think he has pieces of advice like don't try as hard and no reason for you to go out and be exceptional because, well, that wasn't the road that he took in life. The road he took in life was, you know what? I'm good at talking to people. I'm charismatic and I'm funny. I can sell that. Here is a industry that's booming and, he jumped in on the ground floor and that's how he got successful, man. He was made for the self-help world, which makes him a great self-help guru, but that's what he's good at, is being a self-help guru. Unlike a lot of the other people we're about to talk about, he wasn't good at something else or achieved in something else and then later turned into giving self-help advice, right? So that is just a disclaimer on Mark Manson himself, not to take anything away from the guy. Again, he's super fucking funny and I do think he gives good advice. That video was chock full of awesome advice, but you will notice his advice changes. Like he almost takes his own advice, right? The very first piece of advice he gave in that video was "you're always wrong." Well, I guarantee you, if you ask Mark Manson, because I don't think he's a dishonest person, I don't think he's a shill or what's the word that everybody likes to call people nowadays? A grifter. I don't think he's a grifter by any means. But I bet if you asked him, he would be honest enough to tell you that a lot of the advice he gives you in The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck isn't advice that he thinks is good advice anymore. I'm sure if he's taken his own advice, then he would know that what he said in some of these parts of his book are wrong. So take it for what it is. You don't read any self-help book taking every piece of advice in the book. You take what you need from it and then let the rest, throw it in the trash, not the book itself, but, take the rest of the advice for what it is. You don't really necessarily need it. So that was, for me, that was something that I wanted to say, a big disclaimer. Not to take any away from Mark Manson or imply he's a grifter or anything like that. He is a really effective self-help guru. He's a really effective communicator, and he does have a lot of good advice. But a lot of his advice really just seems like shit that he's kind of thinking of in the moment, like, ooh, this is a good piece of advice, and so he writes it down. And in that sense, like I said, The Subtle Arts of Not Giving a Fuck isn't some spectacular thing that you're not going to find in other books. There's nothing in this book that other books aren't going to say to you. It's just a really good compilation of different pieces of information that very effective. And my number one, if I had to say my favorite piece of advice in his book, that was something that I wanted to add to the list here. With each book, I wanted to give you my favorite piece of advice there. My favorite piece of advice here was the importance of saying no. The importance of rejecting things that you don't want to give a fuck about, whether that's a job that you don't want, whether that's a person in your life that you don't want in your life because they're unhealthy for you, whatever it is, knowing how to reject people and in turn take rejection, they do go hand in hand. You do get a lot better at taking rejection when you yourself become good at rejecting other people. It becomes kind of part and parcel, but knowing how to reject people and say no, particularly when people are asking you for shit. That was advice that I needed very strongly in my life. And in fact, I even put it to practice. I used to live, I had an apartment complex at this time that was next to a bus station, a train station, and a light rail. So it was just a hub of activity. I could just walk out of my apartment complex, right down the stairs, take one left turn, and I would be in a giant courtyard of just people left and right. This was in Denver, Colorado, just massive swaths of people walking every which way. And I would go out there, I'd go sit on a bench and I would light up a cigarette. And then I would wait for somebody to come ask me for a cigarette because it was inevitable. As soon as you lit a cigarette out there, somebody was going to come ask you for a cigarette. And I would spend about an hour a day telling people, no, I'm not giving you a cigarette. And not giving them a reason either. Just say no. They would say, dude, just give me a cigarette. Say no. Say, I'll give you 50 cents. No. Like, dude, fuck you, you motherfucker. No, I don't care. Man, you a fucking piece of shit, this, that, name it. They'd curse you out and they'd walk away. But it was a way for me to almost like acclimate to saying no to people because I had a hard time with that. And it's funny because nowadays I even look at myself and I still feel like, yeah, I still have a hard time with that. There's times where nowadays it's more so with people I love. I have a hard time telling people I care about no. You know, with strangers, I have no problem at all telling people, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to do whatever it is you want me to do because I just don't have the time for that, or it's just not my thing, or whatever, you know. But I used to have a very hard time with that when I was a kid. I just didn't grow up in a household that taught that particular skill set. So I had to develop it on my own, which is, you know, as you get older, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And so this book did help me with that. So that was my big takeaway from the book. One of the better things that I learned about the book, along with that, choosing what things you give a fuck about and the importance of choosing the right thing, what really brings you happiness in life. You need to choose what that is, be for real about it, and then suck up the consequences of it when that you start working towards that goal. And because you're going to have to sacrifice other things in service of whatever that goal is. If your thing that you want out of life is a super happy relationship, then you're going to have to sacrifice time on the job. You're going to have to sacrifice money. You're going to have to, you know, in order to create that amazing relationship. But if the thing you really want out of life is money, which I don't think, you know, in spite of that last piece of advice Manson gave, I do honestly believe that, yeah, a certain amount of money is almost a necessity to be happy. Because a certain amount of money is a necessity for you to have health insurance, take care of emergencies when they happen in your life, take care of other people that you love in life. You think, oh no, I could just live off of loving the right person and that's all I need for happiness. Wait until that person catches cancer. Okay, wait until that person goes to the hospital. It will happen. Even if you love them, then you'll spend the rest of your life with them, and inevitably you're both going to end up old at some point. Wait till that person is old and they're in pain and they're suffering. You're going to wish you had the fucking money to pay for their surgeries, to pay for, even if it's just painkillers, okay? But to pay for them to get the best treatment they possibly can get. You're going to really fucking wish you had the money. And if you just lived your life saying, oh, all I need is love to get by, I don't need money, I can be broken as long as I have love, I'm fine. Well, I'm going to say that's naive as shit. No, because inevitably you're going to get to a point in your life where you're going to watch that person that you love oh so fucking much suffer from some health issue, and love don't pay the hospital bills, motherfucker. Money does. Okay, so to some extent, you do need some amount of money in order to at least be secure in life. So when things like, so you can focus on things like loving the person you love, right? But if you don't have that blanket of security, you're not making the money to pay for health issues, emergencies, things like that, then ask a poor person about it. They'll tell you life is infinitely more stressful without money. Go ask an honest person who went from poor to rich, and they will tell you, yeah, money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys security. And there's going to be bad things that happen in everybody's life. Rich people can afford to take care of a lot of those problems because they have the money to. Poor people don't. Poor people don't have the money to care for their mother who's suffering right now and living in a shitty hospice where she gets treated like shit. And have that happen to somebody you love and see how much that hurts and how unhappy you are. Yeah, you don't want to end up there. So no, yeah, I don't fully subscribe to the advice of like, oh, you just need love and fucking puppies. Like, yeah, you need those things. Those things are awesome, but you need money too. So I'm pretty firm believer in that. That's kind of a black pill, but it is what it is. You go talk to most poor people and they'll tell you the same fucking thing, right? They're going to say the same thing to you. Like, life is infinitely harder when you don't have money. So in any case, all I'm saying is finding out what you need out of life and working towards those goals is important. And that's an important point that book makes too. So that's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I spent a whole almost 45 minutes on that, which I think is fine. That's good. We do need to go a little bit faster, but you know, anybody who's watching this, you definitely got your money's worth on that particular book, right? Okay, so we're going to move on to the second book on this list, The Power of Now. So The Power of Now would be number 7 on my list of top 8 self-help books. And the reason for that, well, we'll get into that in a little bit, but The Power of Now was written by Eckhart. I never learned how to pronounce his right name. Tolle, or Toll. I don't know. It's something. I'm going to say Tolle because that sounds funner. So Eckhart Tolle, again, you look at the ratings, 55,000 ratings. This is the upteenth edition of this book, The Power of Now. It was written, I think, in 2009, something like that. It is a very, again, another super popular book in the self-help space. This one is much different than Mark Manson's book. There's not a lot of humor in it. It's much more on the spiritual, almost kind of like Goose Frobby, New Age hippie type. So this is the Amazon link to it. If we're going to dive a little bit into this book so you can learn a little bit about it, or a little bit specifically about Eckhart Tolle is what we're going to learn about now. And then I'll give you my 2 cents on this book. And if you sound like this book sounds really good to you, you'll have this link in the description of the video, right? So let's learn about Eckhart Tolle, spiritual teacher and #1 New York Times best-selling author. Eckhart Tolle is widely recognized as one of the most inspiring and visionary spiritual teachers in the world today. With his intentional bestsellers, The Power of Now and A New Earth, international bestsellers. Power of Now, I knew that sounded weird, like intentional bestsellers. Like, doesn't everybody have the intention of being a bestseller? The international bestsellers, The Power of Now and A New Earth, I've read that one too. Power of Now, I definitely recommend much more. Translated into 52 languages, he has introduced millions to the joys and freedoms of living life in the present moment. The New York Times has described him as the most popular spiritual author in the United States, and in 2011, Watkins Review named him the most spiritually influential person in the world. Eckhart's profound yet simple teachings have helped countless people around the globe experience a state of vibrantly alive inner peace in their daily lives. His teachings focus on the significance and power of presence, the awakened state of consciousness which transcends ego and discursive thinking. Eckhart sees his awakening as the essential next step in human evolution. So there's Oprah. I keep Eckhart's book at my bedside. I'm pretty sure Oprah said that about like 15 different books, though. So, take it with a grain of salt. There's Eckhart with the Dalai Lama. There's author of The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. Deepak Chopra is his name. One of the best books to come along in years. Every sentence rings with truth and power, the power to bring you into the gap, the space between your thoughts, where we find, as Eckhart so beautifully puts it, deep serenity, stillness, and a sacred presence. And these are a list of his books, The Power of Now, The New Earth. I've read both those. Haven't read Oneness with Life or Stillness Speaks. Haven't read that one yet. So Eckhart Tolle here, there's a little bit about him. This is his website that I'm going to link to in the description where you can get his books. You can learn all about his foundation that he's got going on here. I don't know anything about the foundation. Is dedicated to accelerating the awakening of human consciousness to create a more peaceful and harmonious world. All right, which is a pretty good thing to go out and try to do, right? He's got all kinds of speaking events and stuff that he does, right? We're going to talk a little bit more, I believe, about Eckhart Tolle. Or maybe we're not. I don't know. I might have crossed his name off the list of the top most influential speakers that I had. Or no, I didn't. I kept him on there because he does have some good speeches. So I got another stream coming up on my favorite motivational speakers, and Eckhart Tolle will be in there. So we'll go a little bit more into his personal story on that particular stream, since I have so much to cover on this stream. But I will link his website though, so you can read a little bit more about him down in the comments below. But on that other stream, we'll actually watch some videos of him speaking too, some of the more inspiring things that he says. This book I can definitely speak a lot more about than Mark Manson's, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hop over here, give you my 2 cents on this book. I can speak a lot more on The Power of Now than I can on Mark Manson's book, because I've read The Power of Now a couple times, because it is a legitimately good book. Eckhart Tolle does have more of a spiritual, hippy-dippy kind of feel to him, which I liked. He does have a lot of useful information about religion in the book and spirituality and how they kind of connect. And he's got a much more soothing tone to him, right? He speaks like a fucking therapist. When this dude talks, it is a very soothing, make you want to meditate type of voice, right? So the book is a good listen on your Audible. I highly recommend it. But it's a good read too. I really enjoyed reading the book. Funny enough, The Power of Now. So I had just kind of I had read Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art of Murder and Persuasion. And funny enough, The Power of Now was the second. It's the second on our list, and it was the second self help book that I read. And I was just getting into therapy. And one day I went to a gas station. And when I got out of the gas station, I was getting in my truck and I looked down, and The Power of Now was sitting on the ground. Where do I have here? I actually have that exact book over here in my desk. Let me find it. All right, yeah. Here it is. I got it. So this book was just sitting on the ground right next to my truck, like literally right in front of my truck door. And I looked down and I saw it and I was like, huh, The Power of Now in big gold letters, right? And it's kind of bent out of shape. It's a little fucked. I opened it up and it's got like coffee and shit spilled in it. Pages are all worn out and old. You can see where people have ripped pages and all kinds of shit. But I was like, well, you know, I'll go ahead and take this because, hey, the universe is giving me a free book. I might as well take it, right? Not going to scoff at that. So I took the book and I took it home and read it, not knowing what it was, and it blew my fucking mind. I was like, oh shit balls, dude, this is a dope fucking book. And it's funny because if you told Eckhart Tolle that story about finding his book on the grounds just randomly in a gas station parking lot and being in the middle of a self-help journey, he would be like, that's the universe, bro. The universe is like my greatest salesman. And this is what I'm talking about here, son. This is why I'm spiritual. Like that was a sign from whatever, the gods, whoever makes signs, you know, Jesus, Santa Claus, whoever, right? So I think that's kind of funny. He would really approve of that story that I didn't know who he was or his book. I just happened to see it sitting on the fucking ground. The aliens, there you go, cutie pie. Yeah, the aliens sent this book to me. I'm pretty sure what happened because I looked down the street and there was a homeless person with a giant shopping cart full of stuff and shit was falling out of it. And it was right in line with my truck. And I was like, oh, I bet they walked through the parking lot and this book dropped out. And I was like, well, I'm taking it. So I might have stolen it from a homeless person. Eckhart Tolle wouldn't approve of that message, but I don't know. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying it could have happened, you know? So, but in any case, I thought that was pretty funny. And that inspired me too for the rest of my life. Whenever I find a book lying on the ground, I pick it up and read it. I don't, because that book did blow my mind and did help me in a big fucking way. So now whenever I find a book, I pick it up and I read that shit. I take it home and I read it. And actually that's worked out. That's a rule that I have that is surprisingly worked out incredibly well for me in my life. I found another book called The Five Love Languages that ended up being a really amazing book. I don't know where that one's at. That one's buried. I still have that book too. I found that on a riverbank buried in the sand and popped it out and there was The Five Love Languages and it was a short book too. So I was like, well, it doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but I'm going to read it. Fuck it. And I read it and I was so happy I read it. I was like, ooh, this book totally revolutionized the way that I think about relationships, right? So another really good book, The Five Love Languages. But so whenever the universe or the aliens drop a book in front of me, I read the fuck out of it, right? So anyways, so The Power of Now is about presence, okay? It's not your uh typical self-help advice like what you should do, shouldn't do, what you should give a fuck about, not give a fuck about, this, that, or the other thing. It's really a kind of how-to manual for getting out of your own thoughts and finding essentially it's guess finding well peace, right? So finding kind of peace and quiet in your own minds, right? It introduces you to a concept that is very important in therapy. This concept that was in The Power of Now became something that, you know, helped me a lot when I went to therapy, and a lot of therapists teach this concept, this idea that you are not your thoughts, right? A lot of people struggle with this concept that you are a consciousness that is observing what is happening in your minds. And you are not your mind. Your mind is thinking so many things like a fucking race car. It's like boom, 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 boom. It's thinking thousands of things per minute. I mean, I don't know if it's thousands, but it's several hundred things per minute. Your mind thinks has that many thoughts a minute. Your mind is a fucking computer, bro. Like it thinks so many things. And a lot of times you don't have control over it. A lot of people have no control over the shit that's happening in their brain. And one of the first things you learn in therapy is you need to control that. You need to control that voice in your head, that inner monologue. We've actually talked about this, the importance of an inner monologue. This was in my 4 Habits of Navy SEALs. We go over this concept of you are not your mind. You have a voice in your head that is telling you things, and you need to take control of that inner dialogue and force it to be a positive inner dialogue. Because for a lot of people, some people do just naturally have a positive inner dialogue. I'm pretty sure my cutie pie has a naturally positive inner dialogue. She's always poppy and like, oh yeah, always optimistic. And a lot of people don't, though. A lot of people don't have a positive inner dialogue. A lot of people walk around with a dialogue that is just fucking beating them down and crushing them and just making them feel like shit on a regular basis. And it's very easy to misconstrue that inner dialogue with other people and think that you project those negative thoughts about yourself onto other people. Yeah, you can do it in the form of judging, but you can do it in the form of assuming that other people think these things about you, right? If you think to yourself all day long, like, God, like I'm ugly and people think I'm ugly and unattractive, you will walk around and when people, look at you and then look away, you'll be like, see, that person made a look and that because they think I'm fucking ugly. And you'll start thinking like this. It's very easy to do. Don't laugh. A lot of people might think that this is silly, and some people might think it's silly because they think they're not experiencing it. The overwhelming majority of you are. I would put serious amounts of money down that everybody is having this go on. And unless you've been introduced to this concept and have practiced it, it's happening and you don't even know it. In most cases. What Eckhart Tolle teaches you to do in his book, The Power of Now, is to separate this inner dialogue from your consciousness. So you can essentially be the observer, is what he calls it. You can observe the thoughts that are going on in your head. And this is very useful for therapeutic practices. It's why therapists will teach you to do this, so you can stop the negative things from happening. But more than that, Eckhart Tolle preaches the concept of stopping the voice altogether. Stopping your brain from working and focusing on moments of peace and silence. Because in that silence, when your brain isn't going like a race car where you can turn it off, that's when you are at peace. It doesn't matter what's happening in your life, what kind of stressful shit is going on. If you are worked up or you are stressed out about things, the one for sure way to de-stress yourself is to not fucking think about that thing that's stressing you out. To take a moment to just shut your thoughts down and just relax. It's essentially what a lot of people teach in meditation. And meditation, and he talks about this in his book. His book is a great introduction to meditation, and he talks about meditation a lot in his book. That is what you're essentially attempting to do in meditation. When you are meditating, you are attempting to clear your minds of all influences, external influences, stop your internal, regulate or completely stop it altogether, your internal dialogue, and just let yourself be. And that's the power of now, the power of presence. And the idea is to train yourself to be able to do this throughout the day, almost subconsciously, to where you can walk around through most of your day living specifically just being, not having your mind filled with all these thoughts, but just being present and observing the world around you and observing yourself in it, and then observing the thoughts that you have about it, but always maintaining distance from it instead of getting too into your own thoughts and forgetting that you are a consciousness that's observing the rest of the world around you. And it seems like kind of a silly concept. To a little bit of an extent, I think it kind of is, so yeah, I'm checking my list. Hold on. I had a list of things I wanted to go through. So yeah, we can hit pros and cons on the book because that's kind of what I'm leading into. The pros of the book, the reason why I recommend it, and it's on my top 8 list, and just to drive the point home, this book did influence me and made such a big difference in my mental health that in the book, You probably won't be able to see it, but in the book, oh wow, look at that! How lucky is that? He has a page break in the book. See this right here, that S. So that little S squiggly. Anytime you see this in his book, it reminds you to shut the fuck up, stop your thoughts, and just be in the moment, right? And I ended up getting that tattooed on my thumbs. And so and that did end up actually being quite helpful when I went to work as a correctional officer. I worked in a juvenile detention facility and had to deal with pissed off, angry, and it was a high security one. So I had to deal with pissed off, angry 15, 16-year-olds, and 15, 16-year-olds are already, high schoolers are already a bunch of assholes. Not all of them, but most of them. And you picture a bunch of rambunctious young hormonal boys that have all killed somebody and are all gang members and all think they're the toughest motherfuckers on the block because they actually were in their life, right? They were the dude on the block that shot the other kid for, I don't know, looking at him wrong. In some cases, just being on the wrong block. And imagine having to babysit 18, 15 of those guys for 12 hours straight. Bro, you need this tattoo on your fucking thumb, right? You need to be able to just relax, calm down, goose fraba that shit away, and create that space away from your own emotions. Otherwise, you're going to snap and fucking punch somebody. And I've watched correctional officers do that. I punch a kid at the juvie, wrestle a kid at the juvie because they said something they didn't like and end up getting fired and even have charges pressed against them because you can't punch a kid. It doesn't matter if he's in juvie, bro. You're a 35-year-old man. It don't look good for you to be the 35-year-old man beating up a 15-year-old boy, right? It's not cool. So that helped a lot in that job. And it helps me a lot nowadays, right? It's always something I still need more practice on. But the concept of being able to separate yourself from your thoughts, the concept of being able to control your thoughts, and the idea of just living for experiencing the moment, which that is such almost cliched advice, to just live for the moment, right? So many people have given you that advice in your life. You're probably sick of hearing it. This is a practical guide for how to actually live in the moment. An important aspect of living in the moment and just enjoying what's happening in the moment is shutting down that crazy mind of yours that is just like a fucking Gatling gun, just rattling off so many thoughts in a minute that it's hard to control. I myself love to think. I enjoy thinking. I really enjoy the process. I could sit in a room by myself with the TV off for hours and just think. No social media, no music, no nothing. Just sit and think. And I fucking love thinking. But I definitely think way too much. I think way too much about a lot of shit. I get worked up about a lot of shit that I don't need to get worked up about. And it can cause me to lose sleep. There's nights where I'll only sleep 2 or 3 hours a night. If I'm really fucked up and really neurotic, I'll only sleep 2 or 3 hours a night because my mind just won't stop thinking. And so this book, if you have that problem, you're a neurotic person and you have that problem where you just think way too much about shit, you overthink things, this book will help to calm you down for sure. It is a great introduction into meditation, into meditative practices, and there is peace there. There is absolutely, dude. This is something I've been thinking about for the last several months, is how I really can't wait for my schedule to clear up a little bit so I can focus on meditating. I'm thinking at the end of this month, when I'm done with my cut, I'm definitely going to make room in my schedule for meditation, 10 minutes a day to start, because man, it's powerful. I just realized my fridge is on. That damn little fridge. I need to get that tattooed on my fucking thumb to turn that bastard off before I stream, because you can hear it in my microphone. Anyways, long story short, yeah, so there, whatever. So anyways, yeah, that meditation is a very powerful tool. It really helps with creative processes. It really helps with keeping your minds, keeping yourself from being overwhelmed by life, can really help with stress regulation, and is just all around just a good practice to get into. And yeah, when you get into meditation, I meditated for about 2-3 years every day for about 15 to 20 minutes straight, and would miss a day here or there, obviously, but for the most part, I was meditating every day. And man, I was one happy little fucking cow in a field, bro. I was so at peace. I was so like, I just don't give no fucks, man. Like Mark Manson, I give even less fucks than you, bro. Like meditating like that was just it really chilled me out, made me less neurotic. And so this book is a great introduction to meditation, a great introduction to meditative practices, a great introduction to the concept of separating yourself from your inner voice. And if you're the kind of person that overthinks things in life, which is a big problem that a lot of people have, then this is a great book for you on that front too. So that's why I recommend this book. And it's got that really, like I said, he's got a really therapeutic voice, really chill, Goose Fraba kind of motherfucker, real kind of spiritual new agey. And so that's something I liked about the book. Cons about the book, obviously you can't sit and meditate all fucking day, right? At some point you do need to get up off your ass and you do need to go work. And he obviously addresses that. He knows that. He isn't saying you should just spend the rest of your life meditating, but there's moments your brain thinks for a reason. Your brain is processing that many thoughts for a reason. And Eckhart Tolle does not seem to think so. He seems to think, no, this is somewhat of a side effect. Like you read on his website, this awareness is the next step in evolution. I think that's a little bit of an oversell. But in his mind, this is like the plague of being a human, is this consciousness that never stops thinking, this brain that never stops working. And to me, I think, well, that's the reason that we beat out the fucking saber-tooth tigers, son, all right? That's the reason why we didn't get eaten by all the motherfucking bears, okay? That's why Homo sapiens beat out the Neanderthals, right? I mean, aside from opposable thumbs, which gives you the ability to wipe your own ass, right? And that's pretty cool. That's great. You know, evolution did us a favor there, for sure. Aside from that, our consciousness is what separates us. You see what I mean? It's your ability to problem solve that makes us the top of the fucking food chain, right? It's our ability to say, wow, it's cold outside. Hey, maybe I should kill that fucking bear and wear his fucking skin. And, you know, oh shit, that works. You know, our ability to think problems through. And in order to do that, you have to act on assumption. You have to make assumptions. You have to be thinking. You have to be analyzing the issue. And, you know, you can't shut your brain off entirely. You shouldn't shut your brain off entirely. And as awesome as it is to find that kind of peace and to practice that on a very regular basis, it's equally important for you to be able to let your mind flick itself on, get into gear, and really focus on the things that you need to focus on. And that's where, to me, the importance of this kind of inner peace really lies, is when you have inner peace, it allows you to put all that brain power towards the important things in life. And he does talk about that a bit in the book. But again, he's a little bit more intense on the spiritual side of it. What's ultimately important is that spiritual connection that we all have. And he's a little bit more, I will also say that the hippy dippy sort of spiritual, you know, love conquers all nonsense is kind of, well, it's heavily present in his book. And I tend to disagree a little bit with that. You know, love is awesome and it's a very powerful thing. As Mark Manson told us, him and Eckhart Tolle would heavily agree on that. But Eckhart Tolle takes it to the point where it's, you know, to him, it is most certainly the reason for him being, which it is. And, you know, this is how, again, how he makes money, is by preaching this awakening aspect, this self-awareness. So that's important to him. But, you know, it is a good, useful tool for you. But it shouldn't take precedent. And in my life, it doesn't take precedent over the goals that I'm trying to achieve. Self-awareness and, you know, presence, as he puts it, is a useful tool to have in my toolbox to help me accomplish the things I want to accomplish in life. But it isn't the be-all, end-all of my existence. And for him, he thinks, no, yes, it should be. You know, your life would be better if it was. And maybe that's true. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's onto something there. But for me, I politely disagreed. I found happiness in other things in life outside of just, you know, goose robin meditation all day. But yeah, it's still a good book. It's still powerful. It still teaches you some really awesome skill sets that will be very useful, particularly if you're the kind of person that worries a lot or is always stressed out or is nitpicky, over things, or is too judgmental, especially on yourself, too self-critical. This book is very helpful for that. So that's why I recommend it. Those are some of the pros and the cons. That's the big takeaway I think you can get from that book, is learning that peace of mind, learning how to meditate, learning the importance of it, and experiencing for yourself how important it is to be able to separate yourself from your own stream of thought, shut it down, and just enjoy a little bit of silence. Gather your focus before you go back into the world, right? So this book will really help you with that. It's a really short book too. It's a bit of a more difficult read. Mark Manson is a way better writer than Eckhart Tolle is, and it shows. Eckhart Tolle's book it's a short book, but uh it's not the most enjoyable. It's not like Mark Manson's book where you're going to laugh your ass off through the book. You're going to read some really funny stories in between all this good advice. Not a lot of funniness in this book. This book is much more serious. So would put that maybe in the con section. But, it's still worth a read, right? So if you ever are walking out and you find that book lying on the ground, I suggest picking it up. And if you feel like you could really use that advice, how to separate yourself from your consciousness, your stream of consciousness, all that stream of thought, then definitely go out and pick up a copy of this book at the link in the description. But we're going to go ahead and jump into my number 3 pick. My third most favoriteest self-help book. This would be number 7, right? 8. This will be 8. No, okay, it's because we had 8. So 8, 7, 6. Okay, here we go. I'm learning to count again all over. So number 6 on my list of favorite self-help books is going to be this book, to completely throw it in a whole nother direction, right? We had Mark Manson, who's super chill, super fucking, yeah, fuck it, bro, kind of aloof, kind of like, he's like, I don't know, I feel he's kind of like a Joe Rogan bro kind of guy, right? Live and let live. Focus on what you want to focus on, what's important in life. Make sure you don't give a fuck about too many things. And, Eckhart Tolle, who's much more spiritual. That book, by the way, does dive into a lot of spirituality. I don't know if I said that, but you do dive into some religious topics, which is interesting. I did find that part of the book enjoyable, so I'll throw that out too. But now we're going to go in a completely opposite direction with Jocko Willink, Extreme Ownership. How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win, by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. So this book, again, 37,000 ratings, 4.8, very highly rated book. Not so much in the self-help space, interestingly enough. I did pick up this book because I saw what was it? I think it was a interview with Jocko Willink, and really liked him, thought that his interview was really good. I'm going to pull him up and we're going to watch one of his videos on YouTube so you can kind of get a feel for that guy. But I thought, well, I should pick up his book then. And so, yeah, this book is more about leadership. Lead and win is the whole point of the book. This book is heavily based on how to achieve success in your life, and how to lead. Most of his books are exclusively on how to be a good leader, right? Because this guy was, I think it said it right here, he was the leader of SEAL Team Bruiser, the Bruiser Task Unit, which was a Navy SEAL unit in Afghanistan, and supposedly did a really good job. He does have, lately, there has been a lot of controversy about this guy on YouTube. There's always controversies about every special forces guy on YouTube. There's somebody out there claiming that he was a piece of shit, or he wasn't a real Navy SEAL, or this, that, or the other thing, or he didn't do the things he claimed he did. And in some circumstances, like Tim Kennedy, it turns out that they were definitely right. This guy just makes up a whole bunch of ridiculous stories. He has a book out too that I haven't read and probably won't, because some of the stories he made up are just bewilderingly ridiculous. There's been a lot of claims that Jocko Willink, when he was out in Afghanistan, was a real nasty guy, and his task force Bruiser committed war crimes. There's only one guy out there who's actually claiming that. He's claiming that a lot of other soldiers are saying that, and occasionally you'll go through a comment section, you'll have somebody say, well, I was a Marine out there, and he's right. Jocko Willink was fucking murdering little babies or whatever. But all anybody has is, they don't even have first-person accounts. Even the guy who's accusing him of this wasn't there to see it. Nobody has seen this. And you've yet to hear anybody who has said, oh, I saw it myself. This Jocko guy was out there murdering civilians in Afghanistan. It's all Third, I heard from somebody that heard from somebody who said that they heard from somebody who saw him shoot a civilian out in Afghanistan for fun. That's the kind of stories they're saying about him, which is, if he did, then that's very appalling and that's extremely fucked up. And that's a war crime to just kill an innocent person who's not in the middle of the war. But this is all just hearsay. It's just hearsay from people who say they've heard it from somebody else who heard it from somebody else who saw it. And nobody who says they actually saw it has ever came out with evidence or ever came out in general just to say, no, I absolutely 100% saw that. It's never happened yet. So that's a big part of the controversy surrounding Jocko Willink. If you research him, you will find that out there. Just wanted that to be kind of a disclaimer for you. Like I said about Mark Manson and Eckhart Tolle, I'm giving you my opinions on these guys. That's some of the controversy surrounding him that you probably want to be aware of. But anyways, here he is right here. This is his, I'll make sure that link, Amazon link, by the way, is in the description below. This is his website. I think it's Echelon Academy or Echelon Services. He first started, him and Leif Babin started this company, leadership classes for like CEOs and stuff like that, and supposedly it took off and did very well, and that's why he started writing books on leadership. And this is, apparently now they even do leadership classes. So I've never done any leadership classes. I'm probably not going to anytime soon, but this is, you know, something you can look into if you find out you really like Jocko Willink. A lot of people know who he is and have already heard his name. This is him right here, Mr. Jarhead, Blockhead. You know, he not to make fun of the guy, but because you know he could kick my ass, but he looks like this dude looks the way that an army guy like would look. If you had to paint a picture of, oh, what does an army guy look like? That face right there. It's like your classic army dude. And this is Leif Babin, the other writer of that book, who is also a Navy SEAL. Both of them were Navy SEAls. In the shit, they were Navy SEAls in combat. And we'll get to that here in a minute. But yeah, this is some of his courses that he released, which is kind of interesting and cool. I didn't know he did courses. So if you get this guy's book and it turns out you really like it, then you might want to check out his safety courses. He's got a lot of different books, The Dichotomy of Leadership. Most of his books are on leadership. Extreme Ownership is more about leadership, responsibility, and success in life, achieving success in your personal life. So that book is a little bit more on the self-help side of things. It's not so much on how to be a good leader. There's a lot of that in there, but it also covers how to be more responsible for yourself in life and how to achieve success in life. Very different from the type of book that we've been talking about. So this is one of his classic, he calls these standard directives. Go over the YouTube screen. This is from his YouTube channel, the Jocko Podcast on YouTube. He has these things he does called standard directives, which are short little YouTube videos that are kind of like pep talks. So we're going to go ahead and watch his Standard Directive 01, the first in his series, so you guys can get a feel for how Jocko speaks and talks and what his writing style would be like in his book.
They're pliable.
Probably turn the sound on. Okay.
Our minds they're pliable. Everyone's minds are pliable, and it's different levels. Some people have more pliable minds than others, but our minds are pliable and we get influenced by our environment. That's what happens. Music, words that you read, movies, books, social media, the news, the people you're around, family, friends, people that you work with. You're getting influenced. That's what's happening. Think about how you feel when you hear some aggressive music. Think about what that does to your mindset. You hear aggressive music and you start feeling a little bit amped up. Or you hear some sappy music or some party type.
I love the way that he says sappy music. That like look on his face is just so like Navy SEAL, like sappy music. I'm too manly for that. I just love that shit. I really love watching this guy talk because he fits in his stereotype so fucking well and he owns it. And it's really enjoyable and funny to watch.
Music. It impacts you. It influences the way you're thinking. Movies can change your mood, right? I mean, everyone's felt that. You watch some movie, it's a happy movie, it's a sad movie, it's an action movie. It influences the way you're thinking. Your friends, you got friends that like to party, right? They like to go out. They like to drink and go out to the clubs. You're around those people, all of a sudden you start feeling that little urge. And you got other friends that are disciplined. They are going to go to the gym early in the morning. They make you want to work out. So these are examples that we might not be thinking about them, but if you think about them, you know they're obvious. And this is happening all day long. This is happening all day long. Our minds are morphing from minute to minute if we let them. If you are not paying attention, if you are on cruise control, then your mind is not under your own control. We can't be in cruise control. You can't let your mind be in cruise control. You have to be cognizant of what you're thinking. You have to be.
I would like to make that note there, kind of compare and contrast that to a lot of what Eckhart Tolle teaches. Being cognizant of what you are thinking. Again, that is a huge part of being present. Eckhart Tolle talks about that, right? Again, like we were talking about separating your stream of thought from yourself, be aware of what's going on in your minds. I'd also like to put in, though, that, Jocko here is putting a lot of emphasis on the idea of like, no, you need to be, yes, controlling your thoughts, be aware of your thoughts, but you need to be purposefully thinking about it. Like you need to be putting yourself in certain situations. You need to be taking control of your thoughts versus shutting your thoughts off, which is what Eckhart Tolle is talking about, right? Eckhart Tolle, live in the moment, appreciate what's happening in the moment, is real good advice and could lead you to be the kind of person to say, well, yeah, fuck it, man. My friends want to party. I'm going to go out and party tonight. Just live in the moment, right? Live for the moment. And Jocko's on the kind of the opposite side of that, where he's like, no. You need to have goals and aspirations, and those need to take precedent. And then you need to be conscious of what you are allowing to influence you in your life, because the things around you are influencing you and might be influencing you to not achieve your goals. So you need to be cognizant of what you're thinking. Yes, just like Eckhart Tolle would say, but he would also say you need to take control of your thoughts, whereas Eckhart Tolle would say you need to shut your thoughts off. So a little bit of difference there. Not saying either one of them is worse than the other. Objectively, I couldn't say anything like that. It depends on you as a person, what you need, right? The kind of advice that you are seeking in life. But for me, I lean harder towards Jocko.
Cognizant, you have to be aware of how you are being influenced. Because in this day and age, right now, if you aren't careful, you can slide down the path of least resistance, the path to weakness, the path to fragility, and the path to a lack of control as to what is happening in our lives, in your life. Life will happen to you instead of life happening for you. Do not allow that. Just do not allow that. You have to take control. You've got to do something to get control of your brain, of your mind. You got to check yourself. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if you set an alarm every 45 minutes so you can audit your thoughts, so you can audit what is influencing you, so you can control what's influencing you. Control the things you think about. You can actually control how you feel. You can control what you think, and you can definitely control what you do. Do not be a slave to influence. You got to be the master of your mind. You got to control your mind. You got to exercise mind control. That means you got to pay attention and be aware all day. That's what you got to do. So go execute.
Okay, so there's your standard Jocko. You can tell he gets very amped up, right? His speeches are a lot of him yelling in the microphone like you would expect from a Navy SEAL, which again, I fucking love and appreciate that. I think that's so funny, but enjoyable. It's funny in a good way. So I appreciate it. Okay, so let's talk about it. Extreme ownership, right? So now I just played that for you so you could have some idea of what Jocko's like, what kind of person he is, what you would expect his book to be like. Jocko's book is a very interesting book. It's one of the more unique ones on the list in the sense that, so when we go through here, I got it pulled up, or I'm pulling it up, excuse me, on my phone right now. So I can go through the chapters with you. Not go through each chapter, but so this book has 3 parts to it. Each part has about 4 chapters in it. With each chapter, he's giving you like a new principle to learn. And a lot of these, just like that idea, you need to control your mind, control your influences, pretty standard stuff. Okay. A lot of what's in his book isn't particularly extraordinary. For example, excuse me. For example, chapter 4 here, check the ego. Pretty good advice, right? Check your ego at the door. Great advice, but nothing too extraordinary there in the sense of like, wow, how original, right? In part 2, it's called The Laws of Combat. He has a chapter called Keeping It Simple or Simple, which means, I mean, make a plan, but keep the plan simple. He's got another chapter on the importance of planning. He's got a chapter, let's see here, Decentralize and Command. I don't quite remember what that one was about, but you get the gist. A lot of what he has to say is very simple concepts that are still important, very important stuff to learn. You can learn them from other self-help books, which is a lot of the reviews that I see online about Jocko's book, Extreme Ownership. A lot of people kind of write it off and they say, well, you can learn this from other self-help books. And that's true. You absolutely can. They're not wrong about that. You could say that about most self-help books, though, to be perfectly honest. I think, even The Power of Now, you can learn about meditation, presence, separating your consciousness from your stream of thoughts in a whole bunch of other books. In The Subtle of Art of Not Giving a Fuck, same thing. It's filled to the brim with lessons that you can find in other books. But in The Subtle Art, you're not going to find those lessons most of the time. You're not going to find books that are going to teach you those lessons the way that Mark Manson does, where he's funny, he's energetic, he's enjoyable, and the stories he tells are really poignant, but also funny. They have that funny edge to them. You're not going to find that in a lot of other books, and that's the reason why that book reaches a lot more people, why it is a good book. The Power of Now teaches you about presence and separating your consciousness, taking control of your stream of thoughts from a much more peaceful, especially like comparative to Jocko, right? Eckhart Tolle is not a Navy SEAL. He is like the opposite of that, right? He's much more peace, goose fraba kind of broski. He teaches you how to do this from a much more spiritual lens, teaches you the importance of why finding peace is so important to you, why it controls your mind. He doesn't bring out a lot of studies himself. His book isn't filled with any studies, which for me specifically, I kind of put that in the con category. I like studies. I like seeing hard numbers on why this shit works or doesn't work. But he does give personal experience, and he does give good advice, and he gives advice in a much more therapeutic way. You listen to his book, and his voice is very therapeutic. So that is a pro for him. Some people like that in a self-help book. They want a self-help book that is more therapeutic to listen to, not Jocko yelling in your face. Jocko's book is more like a boot camp. And I fucking love it. That appeals to me way more. Extreme Ownership is going to give you advice that you could find in dozens of other books. That's 100% true. But they're not going to come the way that Jocko says it. Jocko's book is very unique in the way that each chapter comes with a lesson. It comes with the lesson being explained through an actual instance of him at war. So every chapter starts with a war story, a genuine, this was a mission that I had in Afghanistan. Here's how it went. Here's the lesson to learn from it. And then here's how to put that lesson into practice. It's very clear-cut, straightforward, which is very different than, I would say, Eckhart Tolle. And it's even more straight cut and straightforward. This is the benefit of learning things from a military perspective. I've listened to multiple self-help or leadership type books from military people, and they always do the same thing. Their books are very organized. Okay, here's the lesson you need to learn, and it says it, the lesson to learn, the key takeaway. Here is the 4-step process for applying it to your life. 4 steps. Okay, it puts it all out, boom, in front of you, so there's no way for you to read this and think, what was I supposed to take away from this again? No, you'll never ever have that with a book written by somebody from a military background. It is organized, it is to the point, it is everything is put in a specific place for a specific reason, and it spells it out for you, right? It spells it out for you, so there's no way you can read this and fuck it up. That's a big part of the military ethos, it seems like, because it's in every single military book that I've ever read, or book written by some military guy. Jocko's book is no different, and that's where Jocko's book excels compared to pretty much every other book on this list. Just like that standard directive, he gives you the standard directive. This is what you got to do. This is why you got to do it. That's it. Boom. 4 minutes. Gives you his passionate talk. You know, he's got that loud voice. This is what you got. Control your mind. Don't be a pussy. And, you know, he doesn't say that, but he comes with that kind of attitude, which I like and appreciate. I do have another guy on here who will flat ass tell you not to be a pussy. We'll get to him in a minute. But Extreme Ownership, I kind of forgot the title for a second. Extreme Ownership gives you very clear, concise, this is the advice, this is how you implement it into your life. This is, and then a really cool war story, sometimes a really intense war story on how he learned this. And that's not something you can find in any other book. If you are, this book, I could see it very much appealing to guys, and especially guys who enjoy action movies and war and stuff like that, right? War movies, action movies. If you enjoy that kind of stuff, this book is so much fun to read. It is filled with really intense war stories that have a really important lesson at the end of every one. And some of these stories are more primed to teach you about leadership. And so that would be the con of this book for me, is a lot of this stuff, you know, here is prioritize and execute, decentralizing commands, leading up and down the chain of command. The lessons that he has in those chapters are not things that I personally appeal to me, because I'm not reading this book for the purpose of being a leader. I myself don't think of myself as a leader. I don't want to go out into the world and start a 500 employee business. I'm not looking to go out into the world and become a military leader, to go out in the world and become a thought guru or anything like that. I don't think of myself as a leader. I don't want to be a leader, right? I don't really think of myself as a follower neither, but there's certain people that I do depend on them to follow, right? And there's certain people that I absolutely don't. There's certain things in my life where I enjoy having somebody's footsteps to follow in, and there's areas in my life where I love to do it on my own and go out and explore. And so it changes, but there's very few aspects of my life where I like to lead other people. In most cases, I want to go do my own thing, or if it's not important, then fine, let somebody else take the lead. I really don't give a shit, and that's totally cool. I can totally be a huge helpful part of the team, and I can appreciate that role and fit into that role very well. But most cases, I'm not looking to be a leader for people in my personal life, man. So a lot of this advice on how to be a good leader, it's one in one ear and out the other ear. It's a lesson that I don't take from this book that I'm not going to use. If you are looking to be a leader, then you should definitely look into his books and look into his other books, because his other books, like The Dichotomy of Leadership, is entirely about how to be a good leader and concepts that you want to understand for being a good leader. And so you should definitely check those books out. But for me, I was more got into this from the self-help perspective. Extreme Ownership, as the title says, it's about taking ownership of every aspect of your life. That's kind of the general theme of the book, is how to never accept the idea that, oh, because something happened to me, therefore I couldn't accomplish something. No. If I didn't accomplish something, it's my fault. If I got sick, it's my fault. And not necessarily even fault, it's my responsibility, really. Fuck faults. Faults, yeah, it plays a role. Even Mark Manson's book talks about this, the difference between faults and responsibility. This is also another thing you're going to find in therapy. If you dive deep into therapy, good therapists will show you and appreciate and help you with the concept, the difference between responsibility and faults, because it is important. But Jocko is all about responsibility. Take responsibility for yourself, just like that standard directive we just went over. It is you need to take responsibility. You need to be aware of what you're thinking every minute of the day and take responsibility for every influence. If somebody influences you to do something stupid, that's on you. You let him influence you, and it's your responsibility. And I think that's good advice. A lot of his advice in this book, one, he makes it super actionable, which is a huge pro for me. That's a huge pro to this book, is it's very easy to understand the book. It's a very entertaining book. He makes it very actionable. The good advice that he has in there for helping yourself become a better person or a better version of yourself or a more effective, more successful version of yourself, I think is very effective, very, very pertinent information and very important. But I can also admit that it can be draining, man. That the reality is this is much closer to meditations, the stoicism. The Jocko himself is very close to being like a modern day stoic, where yeah, it's your fault. It's your responsibility. Everything in your life is your responsibility. Okay. And it can kind of get to a point where it gets a little overwhelming, right? The thought that, if my girlfriend walks out of the bedroom right now and stubs her fucking toe, that's my responsibility. It can get a little intense where it's like, okay, there's some things that I need to back up on. There's certain things in life where, if this is the case, then the thing is, a lot of people can read this book and get overwhelmed by the proposal of nonstop responsibility all day, every day, every single aspect of your life. And it can lead people, and it led me to a certain extent to think, okay, well then I'm going to take Mark Manson's advice and cut down on my responsibility, which isn't a bad thing, but that means cut down on my friends. That means cut down on, there's a large portion. When I was reading this book in my life, I was hell no on a girlfriend. When I read this, the moment in my life where I was reading this book, I was on no dating websites. I was not looking for a girlfriend. If a pretty girl walked up to me in public, I was like, nope, I'm good. Like, I'm just walking this way. And it wasn't that I ever had an issue. It wasn't like I was some like, MGTOW, oh, I don't want to be around women kind of thing. No. Hey, bro, I was totally like, would like to, but I don't want the responsibility. That's the reality. That's where I was at that point in my life, is cut down on responsibility. And this book was kind of a big aspect of that, where I just was like, okay, well, I can jive with the idea of taking full responsibility of every aspect of my life. But that means that in order to make that less overwhelming and more doable, then I need to cut down on the responsibilities in my life. And I need to cut down on being responsible, on how many people are in my life that I need to be responsible to. So yeah, that was, that's, I would say, a potential con with the book. Everything, I always say, there's always such thing as a good thing. There is such thing as too much of a good thing. Poof, that was hard to get out. There is such thing as too much of a good thing. That is one of my big pieces of advice for myself, right? If you like it, you can take it for yourself too. It's free of charge. You're very welcome. Yeah, there is absolutely such thing as too much of a good thing. And I don't give a fuck if it's air, if it's water, you breathe it, you drink too much water, you fucking die. It's not drowning, actually. It's called water poisoning. Your cells break apart because they can't hold themselves together anymore, and you hemorrhage from the inside out. You literally liquefy your own organs. And yeah, it can happen. It's rare, but it did happen in 2018 was the last recorded instance of it last time I checked. A young girl was at a rave and drank too much water and liquefied her own insides. Yeah, it can happen, bro. So, too much of anything is a bad thing, right? Spending too much time with one person can be a bad thing. Spending too much time in the gym can be a bad thing. Spending too much time doing what you love can be a bad thing. It's always possible to have too much of a good thing and fuck it up. And end up not enjoying it anymore. That happens. I did that with pizza. You can ask my cutie pie. Bro, I fucking love pizza. I eat pizza every weekend, and that's not enough pizza in my life. That is me exercising responsibility over my pizza intake. But I fucking love pizza, bro, so much. And I have gotten to a point in my life. There was one moment in my life, man, where I ate so much fucking pizza that I had to stop eating pizza for like 6 months. And it was a very sad moment in my life, man, because life without pizza is just like, why am I here? Like, if I can't have this amazing culinary delight, then what the fuck are we even here for, bro? Just burn it all down then. Hit the fucking red button, blow us all up. I wasn't that suicidal, but I was very upset about the fact that pizza was kind of disgusting because I just ate too much and had to wean myself off, stay away from pizza for a while before I can jump back into eating pizza. And so you can do this with everything in your life. There's always too much of a good thing. And yes, there is such thing as too much responsibility. And there is such thing as taking too much ownership over shit, right? Like the earlier example, right? You're sitting in your house and your girlfriend stubs her toe. Well, you can't take ownership over that. There's no responsibility to take for that, right? And Jocko does come across as the kind of guy who would take ownership over that. And if you didn't, you would be failing. So it can get a little too intense. For some people, they're not going to like the Navy SEAL mentality. They're not going to like the war stories. Some people just do not want to hear war stories. They're not entertained by that. And so this book I totally would not recommend to them. Some people do not like that kind of like in your face, like get it done, standard directive. You know, they don't like that military talk or whatever. So they don't want it. They don't want to fuck with it. If that's you, then this book is definitely not for you because the whole book is written in that tone of voice. That thing you just watched, that's the whole fucking book, bro. That is the whole book. So, so if that isn't what you like, then this book is not for you. And I wouldn't recommend it. That would be a con for some people. His intensity can be a con for some people. And the fact that a part of the book is about leadership instead of self-help is a con for some people. There was a con for me who doesn't give a fuck about leading other people. It's just not bad bag of tricks, bro. I'm not out in the world trying to be a leader for nobody. I'm out trying to lead myself, become a better person for myself. But that's what I'm trying to do, right? So, but there's a lot of good pros in there. Like I said, if you love the war stories, it's a fucking entertaining book. The book is so simple. You cannot fuck it up. There's a lot of good lessons in there. I do believe in taking ownership of your life. That is very important. I do believe in controlling your own thoughts, controlling your own surroundings, things like that. Very important. And he has a lot of very useful tools like that in the book, right? So there's a pro for you. I recommend this book because it is so easy, because it is so easy to follow. And it is so unique in the way it goes about the information. It might not have unique advice, but it is very unique in the way that it goes about the advice, and it is foolproof. It is hard for you to fuck it up. And for some people, that extra added bonus of it being about leadership is going to be something that they're going to want and is something that they're going to look for. And I do think there is a lot to say. I don't care what anybody thinks about it. Some people, for some reason, scoff at this, and I think it's so weird that you can't see the obviousness of this because it's worked for thousands of years before you were ever here, and you have this weird thing in your head where you think this is silly. But there is people out there, a lot of them are men. I would say it's mostly men, young boys, and mostly men, though, specifically, that responds to being talked to with that matter-of-fact, no bullshit, military-esque kind of voice. It is. For some reason, there's mostly dudes, not all dudes for sure, and there's women who do too, but there's people out there who they just respond better with that kind of in-your-face, loud, clean-cut, this is what you have to do, no bullshit, okay? This is what I'm telling you to do. This is how you do it. Get it done by this amount of time. Go. Don't ask me no questions. Fuck off. You know, and some people respond better to that. And I am one of those people where Jocko's book, I clicked with it because I really enjoyed that tone of voice. That, for some people, it kicks your ass into gear. There's a reason drill sergeants fucking yell at you. I don't know what it is with some people where they can't understand this concept where it's like, no, that kicks a lot of people's ass into gear. To have a fucking drill sergeant on your ass telling you what's going to do, it can drive a lot of people. Some people it doesn't. Some people it crumbles them, you know. It's too much. It's too much for them to handle, and that's perfectly fine. Decide what kind of person you are, know what kind of person you are, and then, make decisions accordingly. But for some people, yeah, man, exactly. Hey, what's going on, Bundy? How are you doing? Fucking nice to see you in here, man. I don't usually see you in here for the Mental Health Mondays, so it's nice to see you on stream, man. Hope you had a good day at work too. But yeah, man, that aggressive tone of voice definitely motivates me. It motivates a lot of people. I don't know why some people, I see that a lot on the internet where people think it's silly. And, it can be silly. Like I said, it is really funny to watch Jocko Willink when he's in that tone because he's so stereotypical, so stereotypical drill sergeant-esque kind of person that it makes me kind of laugh a little bit. And in that sense, it is kind of a little bit funny, but I don't think it's ridiculous. I think it's very logical. That tone of voice absolutely amps some people up. And yeah, so if you are the kind of person who responds to that kind of tone of voice, that kicks your ass into gear, then Jocko is your man. Yeah, well, happy first Motivational Monday. I appreciate you being here, man. I'm glad to see you in here. Uh, Always good for a conversation. I forgot I put the chat up, but then realized that I can't see the screen because I'm in my rant screen right now. Hey there, cutie. Oh yeah, that's right. Mental Health Monday. Thank you. I appreciate you, cutie pie. You know my own stream better than I do, for fuck's sakes. Jeez Louise. I need to start paying this girl to be my manager. Gosh. Shit. But yeah, so anyways, there you have it. That's Jocko Willink and his book Extreme Ownership, which makes number 6 on the book list, right, of my top self-help books. So we're going to dive into number 5 here. And so I know we're already almost excuse my ignorance. Yeah, well, you'll have to beg Patani to excuse your ignorance, right? She's the one you ask for forgiveness on that. You'll do it for love. All right. I expected that. You definitely seem more like a Mark Manson, Eckhart Tolle kind of person, cutie pie. More on the puppies and rainbows, spiritual love, meditation kind of person. So I don't think you would jive well with Jocko Willink. I think Patani, definitely not a Jocko fan. I could see Bundy being all in with Jocko, though. I could see him totally responding more to the drill sergeant kind of attitude for sure. But so anyways, I don't think you are just joking, actually, as a matter of fact. I think that you were absolutely a Freudian slip right there is what that was. Oh, I get it. You'll be my manager for love. That's what you were saying. Oh, you're so sweet. Gosh, gonna make me blush and shit. So cute. Well, yeah, well, that's good because then I got plenty of that to give. Okay. That's much easier to give than money, that's for sure. At least where I'm at in my life right now. So, but anyways, yeah. So there's Jocko Willink. We're going to switch gears again. And I'm hit my 2 hours about 6 minutes ago, and I'm only halfway done with my list. I don't know if I figured this stream would be about a good 3 hours tonight. I don't know if I want it to be a whole 4-hour stream, though. That's pretty intense. I mean, I can definitely hack the 4-hour stream, but I don't know if it might be more prudent to actually do a part 2 to the list. Totally lie about what I said at the beginning of the stream. Just lied to, well, all of my 2 very loyal followers who are watching right now and make a part 2 to this. I might do that instead, where I make a part 2 to the self-help book list. So we can do this 4th book. I can talk about it, throw in, and then that way I can keep really diving in deep to all these self-help books because I love talking about these self-help books. It is a really fun subject for me to talk about. So I might just hit number 4. I don't know if you can post. Oh yeah, yes you can. You can definitely post 4 hours on YouTube. That's a good question, cutie. But yeah, my favorite, not my favorite, but I guess on YouTube, my favorite live stream on YouTube, they post 10-hour live streams. They do a 10-hour live stream every Sunday. That Sitch and Adam show that I watch on Sundays. It's a 10-hour stream. So, and they post it on YouTube. So you definitely can. That doesn't mean people will watch it though, right? So I don't know how many people are in the market for a 4-hour stream on self-help books, right? So we might cut this one down to just 4 books each stream. I'll give you the first 4, 8, 7, 6, and 5, and then 4, 3, 2, 1 in the next stream is what I might do. So I guess today this will be the last book that we talk about. That, and I really have to pee too. So, Yeah, oh yeah, I need to make chapters on YouTube. That's what I got to do. Yeah, so people can jump around and save their place and know where they're at. That's actually what I'm going to be working on next week. So yeah, anybody who is watching this on YouTube, if you're still here and I don't have chapters on my YouTube, then I don't know what to tell you. I fucked it up, but I got lazy. Missed my standard directive, but that's what I'm working on next week is putting chapters on my YouTube videos because yeah, that is a big deal, especially in a 2 hour long video. I think is something that if I added, it would just add a couple more views here or there per video. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, no, that's good advice, cutie. Absolutely. Good advice from my manager. I owe you a kiss for that one. A little bit of love. Hey, you in love. Okay, so anyways, yeah, we'll go ahead and hit this fourth book, and that'll be the last book for the stream tonight, and I'll call it good, and then we'll do a self-help books part 2. So that's what we'll do. In the meantime, though, I do gotta pee. Like, I thought I could do the Tao of Pooh is our next book, but I need to take a pee real quick. So I'm going to throw you guys over Bundy, unfortunately. Sorry, as soon as you get over here, I throw my be right back screen on. But the Tao. Yeah. That's really good. You're about half a fucking comedian. I need to throw you on stream just so you can sit in the back with a microphone and make these comments. That's what I need to do. That's how I really get viewers. But yeah, I'm going to throw you over to the be right back screen while I take a quick pee and be right back. Okay, we're back. Gonna hop over here, put this down here. Okay, and we're good to go. Okay, so the Tao of Pooh. That's gonna be number 5 on my self-help, my favorite self-help book list. So the Tao of Pooh, it is a good self-help book list. It's got much less ratings, as you can see here. This one, I think, kind of went under everybody's heads during the whole self-help era. For one reason, though, is because it was written a long time ago. If you look here, this version of the book, I think is the original paperback, was written in 1983. So that was a bit before the heyday of self-help, the big self-help book craze, right? So this Benjamin Hoff didn't quite, land. His timing wasn't as good as, like, say, Mark Matson's, whose timing was pretty excellent into getting into this particular market. But the Tao of Pooh is not so much as a self-help book. It is a self-help book, and you can use it for self-help. It is much more of a spiritual book, right? So in any good list of self-help books, you're going to run into a lot of spiritual books because there is something to be said about spirituality and helping your mental health. That is an aspect. Spiritual health and mental health do very closely go hand in hand. Same with mental health, physical health, and spiritual health. Those three together, 3 peas in a pod is what they are. And so this book is a spiritual book about Taoism, right? That's why it's the Tao of Pooh. It uses Pooh Bear from Winnie the Pooh and all the Winnie the Pooh characters to explain the central core concepts of Taoism. Taoism is an ancient Chinese religious philosophy. There's 3 ancient religious philosophies: Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. And I think they all around the more or less the same time came out around the same time, about 500 years before Christ, is at least when the Buddha, Confucius, is it Confucius? Confucius, the philosopher, the Buddha, and Lao Tzu, the three kind of like, I guess you could say, leaders. They would be like the Jesus Christs of these three philosophies. They can't, more or less were born around 500 years before Christ. So these three religions are, when they say ancient, they certainly mean ancient religious philosophies. So Taoism is the third out of the three, and they have a good picture. Let me see if I can find it. Picture of ancient Chinese philosophers vinegar. And I spelled so many words wrong there. Is this, I think this is the picture right here. I go, it looks like they just made, oh, you know what? Let me hit Google Images instead. So all three of these different ancient Chinese philosophies, Chinese, I have to respell all that. Sophers standing around tasting vinegar. So why am I looking for this picture? Well, because I was lazy and I didn't look for it before we started the stream. But it is important. It is kind of pertinent to explaining what it is. It looks like they got, this might be the original, which I don't know if it's going to be too helpful. Yeah, okay, sure. I think this one is a little bit more. Well, we're going to go with this one. Okay, so the three ancient Chinese philosophies, Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism, all started roughly around the same time and had very different ways for how they thought a person should go about living their life, right? And those three different ways are explained in this painting right here, which actually shows the three ancient Chinese philosophers, Confucius right here, the Buddha in the middle, and Lao Tzu right here on the right. This is all three of them standing around a pot of vinegar, tasting vinegar. And the vinegar in this particular painting represents life. This painting was made to represent the difference in the three philosophies. And it's a really cool, really clever way of showing it. The vinegar represents life and represents their three reactions to life, which loosely represents their philosophy. Confucius, his reaction to the vinegar is said to be, oh, here we go, the vinegar tasters. A vat of vinegar, Confucius finds it sour. Buddha, bitter, and Lao Tzu, sweet. Okay, so Confucius, supposedly, I guess, I don't know, you look at it and it's a little unbelievable, but it is what it is. They say he is tasting the vinegar and finds it sour. And the general idea is that Confucius believes life is better with discipline, that life itself can be made better. Life itself kind of sucks, but more or less, but can be made better with discipline, intense militaristic exercise, devotion to a state, almost kind of borderline fascist viewpoints as far as the militaristic and nationalism goes. I don't think there was any sort of like ethno-nationalist component to it, but very much so that you need to beat yourself into shape to really enjoy life, right? Discipline is freedom was sort of his kind of mentality. And you need to be loyal to the state or loyal to a leader, loyal to a cause. And you need to be, working out every day. You need to be, a very kind of Jocko Willink kind of guy. The Buddha finds the vinegar bitter and believes by Buddhist principles that life is a bittersweet experience. And this is Buddhist philosophy. The main Buddhist philosophy is that enlightenment is found in suffering. There are 7 paths to enlightenment, more or less. And this is the purpose of life, is to find enlightenment. And the only way to find enlightenment is through suffering. And there's like 7 paths to enlightenment that are, it's humility in the face of degradation, working hard physical labor. There's a couple more in there. Forgiveness for wrongdoings. It's built on the idea of suffering with grace. Taking the suffering and accepting it, undergoing through it and understanding that it's okay to suffer because that's just a part of what makes you, what makes life life. And from the suffering you undergo, you gain character, you gain wisdom, you gain enlightenment, more knowledge about the world. And there's a lot to be said about that. These three philosophies did not get famous because people in China were just really fucking bored, right? These three philosophies got famous because there's a lot of truth that rings in all of them. Heartburn. Confucius' idea of discipline equals freedom is something you'll hear a lot of people nowadays will say. That's a very common phrase nowadays. Discipline equals freedom. It is very much the idea that life, when you don't control it, ends up controlling you. And when that happens, it's bad. The Buddhist idea that you need to embrace suffering because it's going to happen whether you like it or not. And there is something to be found in the suffering is another idea that you will see echoed throughout these various different self-help books. In The Subtle Art of Murder and Persuasion echoes that sentiment. Extreme Ownership echoes both of those sentiments. That you need to discipline yourself and you need to understand that life is suffering and there's something to be gained from the suffering, or both. And then that last one is also echoed in The Power of Now. That book also echoes the idea that you need to be present during suffering, right? There's no more important point in your life where you need to live in the now than when the now is painful and it hurts. And then there's Lao Tzu, who disagreed with both these gentlemen, and he finds the vinegar sweet. Lao Tzu believes that life, even when it's not going good, and it sucks and it tastes like vinegar, there's something funny and sweet and awesome to be found. His philosophy in life was find the good in everything. There is nothing about this life that you can't change into a good situation. It is optimism to the extreme, baby. Life is going to do what it's going to do. The trick is to flow with life and find the good in whatever your situation is. Always find the silver lining to the cloud. And so these three main philosophies got condensed down to, specific pieces of advice that you hear all throughout in your life, right? Discipline yourself is good advice. Find something important in your suffering is good advice, and stay optimistic is good advice. And all those pieces of advice generally came from these three Chinese philosophies. I don't know if they were the original people to say it, but they certainly said it. And so the Tao of Pooh, uses Winnie the Pooh to explain the philosophy of Taoism, which is find the good in life, find the optimism in life, always find the reasons to be happy. So let's read a little bit about it. I'm going to read you an interesting anecdote from a doctor, the Tao of Pooh, How a Philosophy Changed My Practice. We're going to read his account on it, and then we're going to watch a quick little video giving us a rundown on the Tao of Pooh, a good summary on the book, and then I'll give you my 2 cents on it, and then we'll probably call the stream a break for now, for tonight, and then I'll do a part 2 at a later date. So we'll read this article, The Tao of Pooh, A Philosophy That Changed My Practice. My mother-in-law gave me The Tao of Pooh by Benjamin Hoff for Christmas. I suspect because she thought my mentality was suited to the cuddly toy of the title. I dutifully added it to my collection of books to read while on holiday, intending to have a complete break from books and journals about medicine. However, when I settled down to read it on a sunny beach far from my consulting room, I was struck by its relevance to my work, and The Tao of Pooh has made a greater change to my practice than much of any regular medical reading. This is a really short article, too, so we're going to read the whole thing. Hoff uses the characters from A.A. Milne's. I don't know what the guy creator Winnie the Pooh is, how you pronounce his name, but A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh. Books to illustrate and explain the basics of Taoist philosophy, showing how Pooh himself is the epitome of the Taoist thinker, enjoying life with simplicity but not stupidity. The author explains that Taoists try to appreciate, learn from, and work with whatever happens in life, whereas, in contrast, Confucianists seek to impose order on a chaotic world, and Buddhists see life's tribulations as obstacles to be overcome before achieving nirvana. See, there you go. I mean, I pretty much already explained it. I could have written the fucking book, right? There you have it. He describes how Tao is the way, which can be understood but not defined, and illustrates key elements of Tao, such as Pu, Pu, the uncarved block, Wu Wei. I forget how to pronounce these because it's been a while. I actually listened to the book and I forget the pronunciations. Wu Wei, going with the flow, or going with the flow. In case you should think that this book is altogether too simplistic, I should add that Hoff touches on the writings of Lao Tzu, author of the Lao De Ching, of the Tao Te Ching, Chuang Tzu, the poet Li Po, and other Taoist philosophers, giving his own translations of passages from their writing. While reading the book, I began to see how the NHS is governed by a Confucianist hierarchy of rules and regulations that do little to contribute to the harmony of life and general practice. Mischievously, I thought of general practitioners as Buddhists overcoming the trials and tribulations of the new contract in a bid to achieve the nirvana of 1,000 quality points. I realized, however, that general practice is a chaotic discipline far more suited to the Taoist approach of going with the flow, the Wu Wei. In Hoff's description of A. A. Milne's characters, I could see myself striving to be like the learned owl, whilst actually being a mixture of the busybody rabbit and the pessimistic Eeyore. We'll get to those characters in a minute. There's a science behind this, trust me. And it's probably one of my most favorite things about this book. It's crazy how this dude used Winnie the Pooh to explain Taoism. I don't know if anybody else out there was listening to this and thought, really? How 2,500-year-old ancient Chinese philosophy can be explained by Winnie the fucking Pooh? Are you kidding me? Bro, no, I'm not. This dude does a really good job. Hoff has shown me how the ideal is to be simple characters such as Pooh himself. I'm going to reread that sentence. I'm getting ahead of myself. Hoff has shown me how the ideal is to be a simple character such as Pooh himself, the eponymous Pooh, the uncarved block, accepting life, work, and other people as they are, rather than trying to impose order on them. I now seek to accept and move with events as they occur, preferring not to try to impose change nor viewing change as an obstacle to be overcome. This approach spills over into consultations, keeping them simple, letting the patient direct the flow. Shades of balance, I hear you say. Well, maybe Ballant was a Taoist. I use Confucian protocols and guidelines, but I try to mellow them, fitting the protocol to the circumstance rather than the other way around. Above all, I keep things simple so as not to lose the Wu Wei. There is a long way to go yet, and I cannot see the NHS general practice or myself ever becoming wholly Taoist in approach. However, any dilution of the increasing complexity and disharmony of NHS general practice with a little Taoist thinking must be a good thing. Learning is not wisdom, and wisdom is not learning. That is an important concept of Taoism. However, through reading this book, I think that I have gained a little bit of both. So interesting little review there, how this guy was able to take Taoist principles and turn them into his own life, which is something that this book I want to give to you guys or show to you guys in hopes that if this sounds like fun for you to read, you can do the same. I myself have added some aspect of the Taoist principles in my life. We'll get to that in a little bit. You know, I'll give you my 2 cents on the book like I did with the others. But yeah, let's go ahead and watch this little YouTube video to kind of explain a little bit of what's happening in the book, give you the ideas of, you know, when he talks about being a pessimist like Eeyore or the busybody rabbit or the owl or anything like that. Hopefully this video kind of dives into that a little bit, and then I can fill in some blanks. Oh, let me go to my YouTube screen. Captions. All right, here we go.
When you discard arrogance, complexity, and a few other things that get in the way, sooner or later you will discover that simple, childlike, and mysterious secret known to those of the uncarved block. Benjamin Hoff. Winnie the Pooh is a childhood favorite for so many people, myself included. This story follows Christopher Robin, a bear named Pooh, and a band of friends through various adventures in their forest homes. In the Tao of Pooh, author Benjamin Hoff takes these characters and uses them to teach 6 important principles of the Chinese philosophy of Taoism.
I do want to say I am about 900% positive this guy is saying Tao, but it's actually pronounced Dao. I'm positive of that. I mean, okay, I'm 99% positive, all right? There's like a 1% I might be fucking that up. See Mark Manson's first rule, you're always wrong, right? Okay, but so sue me, but I'm pretty sure it's Dao.
Taoism is based on eliminating preconceived notions about how life should be and lets the natural order of the universe guide us. By letting your mind be carried by that power within you and nature, you can find contentment and joy in simple living. The first concept is the Tao of Pooh. Taoism teaches that all things in their original state carry their own natural power. Think of the majesty of a forest full of trees standing tall, or the power.
I just realized this video is in German. Where do I get these subtitles? Is it only German subtitles? Okay, for settings. Here we go. Let me swap that. Dutch. Auto-generated. Okay, well. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Okay, good. All right, check it out.
Of waves in the ocean. This concept is also referred to as the uncarved block in Taoism. Pooh is happy because he lives simply. He is the epitome of an uncarved block. He goes about his days in a very routine way, rarely questioning why things are and enjoying the little things, like a pot of honey. Pooh is the hero in this story, a significant fact considering there are many smarter, more clever characters. Simplicity is a great virtue, according to the Taoists. Concept 2, Coddleston Pie. There is no one in the world exactly like you. There are things that differentiate you from every single other being on the entire planet. The Taoists celebrate this ideal of inner nature and celebrate the uniqueness that will bring to the world. In the story of Pooh, the song Coddleston Pie has 3 main lines that point out the principles of inner nature. Number 1, a fly can't bird, but a bird can fly. Everything, people, birds, trees, they each have a purpose in this world. When we try and be something that we aren't, we end up in jobs, relationships, or places that aren't good for us. Be who you are supposed to be. Number 2, a fish can't whistle, and neither can I. This one talks about limitations. Forcing yourself into a job that is well above your skill doesn't help you or the person that hired you. In the world of Pooh, Tigger swears that he can climb trees better than Pooh, only to get stuck at the top of a tree, needing rescue. Number 3, why does it...
I don't know if he's going to jump into the characters, but I believe Tigger represents... Oh, it's been a minute since I've listened to the book, but I believe Tigger represents pride, was it? I think he represents pride, like the idea of thinking that you're more than you really are, which is a personality type more or less that is against Taoism, or that Taoists believe hinders people, right? A general concept of this book that it doesn't seem like this video is going to dive too deeply into is that inside of all of us is all of these characters that represent different aspects of your personality. The busybody rabbit, or the clever rabbit, who's too clever for his own good. The owl, who's too smart for his own good, because there's a difference between smart and clever. Eeyore, who's the pessimist. Tigger, who's the braggart. And Pooh, who's simple. And Piglet, who just doesn't believe in himself, the self-doubt. Those 6 characters reside in all of us. And we want to try to orient not our personalities, but at least our mindsets towards the Pooh in us. It's hard to say that and not kind of giggle a little bit. Orientate your personality to being like Winnie the Pooh. So you are simple, appreciative. You know what you do in life. You do it well, and you find peace in that and happiness in doing the things you're good at. And you don't try to be more than you are, like Tigger. You don't try to be more clever than everybody else or take advantage of people, like Rabbit. You don't try to be smarter than everyone else, like Owl. You don't piss and moan and bitch and cry, like Eeyore. And you don't doubt yourself, like Piglet. And that's a huge concept of this book. I don't know if this video dives into it. It doesn't look like it's going to dive into that aspect. That's an important aspect to talk about. We'll talk about it a little bit on the back end of this.
The chicken. I don't know why. accept the unknowable. While science has done an amazing job of finding answers to many human questions, there are still many things that are without explanation. Not only that, but you will never have the answers to every question that you have in life. Accepting this allows you to be at peace with having questions and not answers. Concept 3. Wu Wei, the Pooh Way. Think of Wu Wei as a tide coming into a beach. The water doesn't try to move up the beach or recede later the same day. It just does. Wu Wei is acting without expending energy or struggle. Combining this principle with that of the inner nature, you spend time putting pegs into correctly shaped holes. Thinking too much results in analyzing the different shapes, pegs, and holes. Cleverness will lead you to trying to force pegs into places that you don't belong, just to prove that you can. Putting a peg into a hole where it fits requires no effort at all. It's as simple as Cottleston pie. Concept 4. The antithesis of Wu Wei. We all know someone who simply can't sit still. They have to be pacing, cleaning, walking, or fidgeting, or they seemingly go crazy. At work, these people are always searching for more. The next raise, the next project, the next victory. The problem with this is that the natural rhythm of life becomes distorted or even ignored. When you don't get that new job, that raise, or there are no more new projects, it is easy to feel like you aren't enough, like something is missing. The Taoists believe that in order to live a happy and healthy life, you must learn to slow down and to embrace Wu Wei. Concept 5. The snowball effect. The first step in any adventure, project, or journey is to believe in yourself. Until you do this, the world cannot help you succeed and build momentum using your own Tao. This comes from understanding yourself and your gifts and limitations. By believing in your gifts and understanding your limitations, you can pursue the opportunities that fit your skill set, while letting things that don't fit in your life go. And the final concept, the empty mind. Many Eastern religions and philosophies incorporate the value of the empty mind. This is especially important in our world full of status updates, likes, comments, and news, all designed to distract us and fill our heads with somebody else's agenda. An empty mind is able to hear a bird sing and simply enjoy the song. A full mind will try and figure out what type of bird is singing or where it is. Meditation is a great way to practice an empty mind, and many people have embraced the practice to help clear the noise. Remember, when you discard arrogance, complexity, and a few other things that get in the way, sooner or later you will discover that simple childlike and mysterious secret known to those of the uncarved block. Knowledge and cleverness are not always virtues. Many times, the simple things, like the way Pooh lives his life, hold the keys to a fulfilling and happy life. This fun little book does a marvelous job reminding you of that. If you are still here, we're assuming that you liked the video, so do us a favor and hit that like button and throw the book idea in the comments that you'd like to see us summarize. And while you're down there, hit that subscribe button and click the bell notification to help out our channel.
I switched from judo.
Okay, so there you have it. That is a video about the Tao of Pooh, and I'll leave that link to the Tao of Pooh in the description of the video, so you can check out the Amazon for it. And we're going to come back over here and talk a little about it. So that video did a halfway decent job of kind of going over some of the concepts in the book itself. It didn't dive too deep in any of them, which was kind of good. So the Tao of Pooh, you know, here, give me a second, because I'm kind of the Tao of Pooh characters. Is that okay? Here we go. So I did kind of want to bring you back over here so you can kind of see, because this is an important concept of the book that guy didn't touch on at all. I still gave him a good like on his channel, smaller channel, so I want to give him a good like. But here we're going to go over what each one of these characters represent, because that's a pretty important aspect of the book. And so, yeah, let's just dive into that real quick so you kind of understand that concept, because this is one of my favorite concepts of the book. There's a lot of cool concepts in the book, and we can kind of dive into it a little bit more at the end of this, but I did want to get this concept through. So, Winnie the Pooh in the Tao of Pooh represents the lovable, honey obsessed bear. Winnie the Pooh represents innocence and simplicity. He's the uncarved block. He often finds himself in sticky situations due to his insatiable appetite for honey, but his childlike wonder and optimism never waver. Pooh teaches us to embrace the present moment and find joy in the simple pleasures of life. Very, very much a power of now orientated kind of existence, right? Piglet. Piglet, the timid and anxious little pig, represents fear and vulnerability. Despite his constant worries and fears of the unknown, Piglet demonstrates great courage when it truly matters. He reminds us that even the smallest among us can overcome their fears and accomplish great things. Tigger. Tigger, the energetic and bouncy bear, represents enthusiasm and exuberance. He is always bouncing around, full of energy and excitement. Tigger teaches us to embrace our inner child, let loose, and find joy in the simple things. This catchphrase, the most wonderful thing about Tigger is, I'm the only one, encourages individuality and self-confidence. Eeyore, the perpetually gloomy donkey, represents sadness and pessimism. He often sees the glass as half empty and struggles with his own self-worth. Despite his melancholic demeanor, Eeyore demonstrates resilience and loyalty. He reminds us of the importance of empathy and being there for others during their darkest moments. Rabbit, the organized and somewhat uptight bunny, represents control and order. He is always busy with various projects and tries to keep everyone in line. Rabbit teaches us the importance of planning and responsibility, but also reminds us to find balance and not let perfectionism consume us. Owl. Owl, the wise and knowledgeable bird, represents wisdom and intelligence. He is often sought after for advice and guidance by the other characters. Owl teaches us the value of knowledge and critical thinking. However, his occasional pompousness serves as a reminder to remain humble and open to learning from others. Kang and Roo. Kanga and her baby kangaroo, Roo, represent motherhood and nurturing. Kanga is caring and protective figure, always looking out for her friends. Roo embodies curiosity and innocence of childhood. Together, they teach us about the power of love, compassion, and importance of family. I'll be honest, like that's an interesting breakdown, but I did not get that nowhere in the book. Do I actually think it says any of that? There it is. Okay, I could have just went right here. This only gives us 4, but Pooh embodies the Taoist concept of non-doing or effortless action. Piglet represents the virtue of integrity. Owl warns against having knowledge without wisdom. Eeyore symbolizes pessimism, and then Rabbit symbolizes cleverness. So that's a good rundown right there. That was a much better concept. I think that was kind of going with what the characters of Pooh represent in the actual Winnie the Pooh cartoon versus the Tao of Pooh. But that right there gives you a little bit of idea of what they represent in the book itself. All of the other characters in the book represent a potential mistake that you could be making. Piglet represents having self-doubt, being too afraid of the world to go out and act, even when you have the ability to. Owl represents being too concerned with being knowledgeable instead of learning from experience. Eeyore represents being too pessimistic and down on yourself and life in general to find anything good in the world. Rabbit represents attempting to be too clever or thinking too much or trying to think ahead of everyone else. And then Pooh represents the not doing any of this, just being who he is and going with the flow, right? So, anyways, we're going to bring it back over here. So, the Tao of Pooh, I don't even remember how I found this book. I think this might have been my little brother recommended it to me. He was into Taoism for a little bit, and I think he was the one that recommended it, so I went with it, read it, and it ended up being a really good book. It's a really short read, which I give it pretty high marks for. As far as pros for the book go, it's got a lot of really good lessons and really does use Winnie the Pooh in an excellent and very entertaining way to teach you about Taoism. There's a scene from the movie Road Trip that I always remember where this kid is trying to teach a guy about philosophy. And the guy's like, you can teach the friend looks at his friend who's trying to learn philosophy and says, okay, what do you enjoy? What are you interested in? He's like, I like WWF. He's like, wrestling. Great. I can teach you philosophy in 2 hours using wrestling. The whole aspect of teaching somebody, the important aspect of teaching somebody is finding a reference point. Okay. So if you know a lot about wrestling, I can take what you know about wrestling and use that as a reference for showing you what you don't know about philosophy. And that always stuck with me because it's so fucking true. You can teach anybody anything so long as you can find a reference point from what they already know. If you're a car guy and you want to learn about philosophy, there's a way to take the concept of a car and turn it into philosophy, right? And this guy uses Winnie the Pooh, a very common reference point for a lot of people in life, even people I never really watched Winnie the Pooh growing up. It was before my time. And I still know who all the characters are. And so that is a great reference point for teaching people about Taoism. And he takes really important concepts of Taoism and distills them in a very easy to understand and very entertaining way that other spirituality books just have a hard time doing because the material is too dense, it's not enjoyable, it's too bland, too academic. This guy takes the exact same concepts and makes them, Benjamin Hoff, the writer of this book, and makes them really easy to understand and easy to remember. That's the importance of finding that reference point, is when you can teach somebody something using a reference point, it's much easier for them to remember, right? And it gets easy to remember what you learn in the Tao of Pooh, because as long as you know who Winnie the Pooh characters are, you're going to remember it. You know, you're going to remember what's in the book, and more or less, you know, like I said, I do want to go back and reread the book, you know, because it's been a long time, 7-8 years, but even after 7-8 years, I still remember what these characters represent. And I still remember what some of the highlights were to me that stood out, you know, because I have that reference point. So that is a big, huge pro to this book too. This book really does a great job of teaching you otherwise difficult material to understand. And it is a really entertaining book and a really short read that has a lot of really interesting and good lessons. And I think those lessons are so beautifully encapsulated in using the different characters in the story to show these different aspects of human personality and to show from the stories, because each chapter is a story about Winnie the Pooh and his friends going out and doing something. And it illustrates how each one of these characters, what their potential flaw is, or how they're essentially not Wu Wei. They're not being Tao enough, right? When compared to Winnie the Pooh, anyways. And so clear examples, really fun examples to read, really easy to understand, and really good lessons in there that are fun to hear about because you're just hearing a fun little child story and it's really enjoyable. And so it's much more relaxed than I would say out of all four of these books, this book is probably the easiest to read. Only second, you know, Mark Manson's book is a close second because it's so funny, which makes it easy to read, but it's easier to read than The Power of Now, which tends to be a little bit thick and chock full of information and a little boring at times, and Extreme Ownership, which is a little more in your face, right? Extreme Ownership, again, has a very easy to understand layout with its almost military-like standard directive, boom, 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 boom. This is the way you do things. But the Tao of Pooh is easy to understand because it itself is a simple book. It's seeking to be a simple book. That's kind of the whole point of Taoism, is simplicity in life, right? So whether or not this book helps you, to kind of go into some pros and cons, whether or not this book helps you in kind of a self-help journey kind of way, helps you understand things in life, really it depends on you. It depends on if you're the kind of person that Taoism is good for. And now I will admit I'm not a very huge Taoist. I never got deep into Taoism after reading this book. I took some things away from it that were important to me that helped me kind of envision the world differently from a much better perspective, a much healthier perspective than what I was at. But it wasn't like I didn't become a Taoist after this, you know. Some people are going to read this book and it's going to completely change their world and they're going to be like, fuck yeah, Taoism all the way. Other people are going to read this book and they're going to be like, dude, this is total shite. This is unhelpful. Unhelpful because it's not my thing, dude. Taoism is just not how I function in the world. I mean, it stands to reason. It's even actually funny enough, it's even a principle of Taoism, right? Like, everybody is made differently. You need to be in the world in the way in which the world designs you to be in it. And if you are a high-strung kind of excellence, high-performance kind of motherfucker that needs people to kick you in the ass, and that's your prep talk and that's your self-help, then you're better off reading Extreme Ownership. And Taoism would say, oh yeah, no, absolutely. If you aren't meant to be the uncarved block, then don't be the uncarved block. If you are better off being the kind of person that likes to think and likes to think hard about things and likes to figure things out, you're a scientist, then be a scientist, not a Taoist. That's what you were meant to be in life. Don't be the fly that tries to bird, you know, don't be the fish that tries to fly. So, funny enough, that is a Taoist principle. Some of you are going to love this book because it is right in your wheelhouse as well, it's just the Taoist principles are going to be something that speaks to you. And some of you are not. Some of you are going to be like, no, this does not gel with me at all. This is not how I like to think about the world. I don't like it. That's how you were after reading The Power of Positive Thinking. How were you after reading The Power of Positive Thinking? I don't know when you actually sent that message, Cutie Pie. So you'll have to remind me what that's in reference to. So I'll keep an eye on that chat, though. I kind of got carried away. My bad, Cutie. So, yeah, the Tao of Pooh, that can be a pro or a con. This is going to be something that, okay. Oh, like a change. Okay, so it was a life changer. The Power of Positive Thinking. I haven't actually read that book. That's an interesting one. Like I said, I was going to reread through these 8 self-help books, but I might put that one on my list to read. If you recommend it and you think it's a good one, then I will definitely put that on my list to read. Positive thinking is important, right? Oh, in the 6th grade. Wow. Okay, so that's an older book, but good. I'm glad. It clearly did make an impression on you because you are a very positive person. So, and that's good that you read it in 6th grade. That's when it's more likely to make an impression on you, not when you're in your 30s. You know, when you're in your 30s, you have to try a little bit harder for these kinds of things to really hit you hard and change your life. You know, but it still happens, but it's not as prominent as when you're in 6th grade. But yeah, this book, it can be that way for some people. It will be for some people. For a lot of people, it won't be. For some people, it would be like, nah, dude, this wasn't a game changer or a life changer for me. For me, it wasn't a complete game changer. I didn't throw down the gauntlet and become super Taoist. There were some key takeaways from the book that I really enjoyed that I'll get into here in a minute. But the big con of this book, I would think, is that, yeah, it's just not going to be for everybody. It's very similar to The Power of Now in the sense of being simplistic, being in the moment, enjoying life for what it is, and never seeking too much out of life is very much the Taoist philosophy, which doesn't jive with a lot of people. It doesn't jive with me. I am very much the kind of person where I need to have, I want to have, it fulfills me to have something I'm working towards. Working towards some goal in life is the joy in life to me, man. Like, that's my fucking honey. That's my Winnie. You know, if I'm Pooh Bear, that's my motherfucking honey, dude, is having accomplishments that I am working towards in life. Even when I don't succeed at them, the very act of just putting everything I got into something is incredibly fulfilling. I sleep like a goddamn baby. You know, if I know that I worked my ass off all day long today at something important to me, I'm going to sleep like a baby. And when I feel like I could have done more and I didn't work hard enough, I'll sleep for like 3 hours. You know, my brain just won't stop working, you know. So there is good things that I got out of this book, but this Taoism itself wasn't my cup of tea. And so for me, that was a con. For some of you, that's going to be a con too, right? So that is what it is. Yeah, like that sweater you're crocheting. Yeah, exactly, cutie. That to me, to have that sweater, you know, I love having a sweater, metaphorical sweater to crocheting. Because if I was crocheting a sweater, I would have given up like 2 squares into it. I would have been like, fuck this. This is not my bag of tricks either. There's more of a chance of me becoming a fucking Taoist than becoming a crocheter. So that's definitely not something I'm good at. But it is the same concept. I definitely want to have something that I'm grinding towards and working towards in life. And you know me, I actually have multiple things. Like right now, I'm cutting, doing the workout. I'm doing the streaming. Took a huge precedent in my life. Writing always takes a huge precedent in my life. And I have my investments and MMA on the back burner right now because I have too many things I'm working towards in life, right? So when it comes to being simplistic, that's really not my cup of tea. I understand the concept and I really wish that I was the kind of person that could just be like, fuck it, I want to be simple, but I'm not. I don't want to be simple, dude. I want to have a unique batch of skill sets. I want to work on my skill sets. I want to enjoy working on my skill sets. I want to feel proud of myself for working towards these skill sets, and I want to accomplish things in them. And I want to figure them out. I need to have a problem to solve. If I don't have a fucking Rubik's Cube to work on, I feel like I'm not getting anything out of the world. I feel like I'm failing in life. I feel like and there's an almost a panic that sets in where I'm like, oh my God, I'm failing at life because I'm not working towards something. I'm much more comfortable when I'm working towards something. And I don't think Taoism is necessarily saying you can't work towards things. It's just saying that, it's just saying don't overcomplicate it, I guess. It's just saying that's not the most important thing in life. The most important thing in life is enjoying the moment. And I do think there is a lot of power in that lesson. You should enjoy the moment for what it is. I myself do get caught up a lot in not enjoying the moment, but it is what it is. Again, that's just kind of how I'm wired. Eckhart Tolle would say that that's a bad thing that you're wired that way. The Tao of Pooh would say, hey, that's just the way it is. So enjoy that. Enjoy the fact that you don't enjoy things. That would be the Taoist way, right? So go with the flow kind of thing. So for me, what I took away from this book, though, what I legitimately loved about it was I do definitely take into context. It makes it easier to take the lessons. For me, Mark Manson's book is funny and it's very edgy in its humor, but I can also, it's hard for me to take some of his lessons. There's times where I'll read his advice and think, nah, go fuck yourself. And maybe it's because his edginess can be a little bit arrogant. I also, reading into who he was, looking into who he was, I was also kind of like, yeah, that's good advice, but ultimately, where is this coming from? What extraordinary thing did you accomplish in your life that you know for a fact that this works? And so that kind of, I'm like, I don't know. I'll take your advice into consideration. The Tao of Pooh just gives you a good, entertaining story that doesn't really say anything. I guess it's really the idea where it's just like, hey, you can do it or don't do it. I don't really care, man. And in that way, it's almost like it's the more, even more of the subtle art of not giving a fuck than the actual subtle art of not giving a fuck, right? The book itself is almost like, I don't give a fuck if you read me or not, bro. I don't care. And so that makes it a little bit easier for me to accept what it's saying. And so I do take into account, I think it's a good, important lesson to enjoy the moment, know your limitations. I do propose that you need to go out and try new things in order to figure out what your limitations are. I don't particularly agree with the idea of the uncarved block in general, or the idea of becoming something you're not. I truly love and enjoy the idea of being able to make yourself into something that you want to be, picking what you want to be in the world and becoming it. To me, that's the American dream. And to me, that's a worthwhile investment. To me, I think for me, because when I went out and some people might connect with this, when I got into self-help, I did not like myself and I did not like who I was. And that was a huge part of me getting into self-help. And that was a huge part of me getting into therapy. It was a huge, when I finally got into therapy and looked at it, it was a reason why I'd made almost every decision I'd make in my life. And that ended up more oftentimes worse for me than not. I went through things that I didn't need to go through in life. I missed huge opportunities in my life that I should have never missed out on because I just hated myself and couldn't stand being who I was and wanted to be somebody else more than anything in the world. And so the reality is accepting that the advice of, oh, well, just accept who you are was like, no, like, go fuck yourself. Like, what I want is to be able to know that I can change things in my life. I need to be able to have a locus of control. Now, I don't need to be able to control everything that happens in my life, but I need to know that I do have some fucking power in my own life, that, I need to have some say in what's happening in my life. And because, yeah, I am of the opinion, because I felt it. I'd felt it all up until I finally went to therapy and started taking control of what was going on in my own brain when life, like Jocko Willink said, this is why I connect with what Jocko says so much. If life is happening to you, you don't want life to happen to you. You want life to happen for you. And I would make the asterisk there. If you were born the child of multimillionaires and you were super sexy and super talented, then yeah, let life happen to you, because life for you is automatically going to be fucking awesome. It is. It's going to be easy for you to go out and find somebody who loves you. You're going to find a whole world full of people that love you. It's going to be easier, not necessarily easy, but easier for you to find something that you enjoy doing that makes a lot of money and that you're good at. It's going to be easier for you to get opportunities in life. Your life is going to be less stressful. So yeah, go with the flow and just let the wind take you where it wants to take you. I am not those things. So I can't afford to do that. Okay. I need to work at being something better than what I am. I need to take control of my life, because if I just let the wind take me where it's going to take me down to the fucking trash heap. I'm going to end up like a fucking garbage bag in the fucking dump, just, just being blown in between pieces of trash. Life is not just automatically I can't bet on life just automatically delivering me to some special little wonderful fucking place where I'm fucking happy. No, I'm not going to, and I'm not going to waste time thinking like that's a possibility. Like, no, dude, I hope that happens. And I always wish for a little bit of luck. And I always hope that some point, cause you do need luck to succeed. Don't kid yourself. Too many people want to pretend like success is 100% you. And that's where I disagree with Jocko, is it isn't 100% on you. I would say it's mostly on you, but no, you do have to be at the right place at the right time. Anybody who tells you any different, who tells you, no, I 100% got myself to where I was in life exclusively by myself. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You did get lucky to some extent. Everybody did. Okay. We all have blessings in our life, and that was luck. That wasn't you. You were not born pretty. You were not born wealthy. You were not born with a particular talent because you did something about it. Okay. You got lucky. And so you do need luck to some extent. And anybody who did succeed, a huge part of that, like look at Mark Manson versus Benjamin Hoff. Benjamin Hoff wrote this really good book, and it got moderately famous, but he didn't become a millionaire off of writing the Tao of Pooh. Mark Manson did. Mark Manson became a famous millionaire off of writing The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And if you look into both of these guys, Benjamin Hoff went out, I believe, to India and studied Taoism, became an expert at Taoism before he came back to America and studied Winnie the Pooh. Mark Manson was just some fucking 20-year-old kid living on his fucking friend's couch and decided, I'm going to give people life advice. And he turned that into a millionaire. So what happened here? One guy worked more than the other guy did, right? Okay, clearly, Benjamin Hoff, not saying not to discount what Mark Manson did in his life, but he would say, okay, Benjamin Hoff went out and made himself a fucking expert at a topic. And Mark Manson didn't. Mark Manson just said, fuck it, I'm going to give people advice while I live on my friend's couch. Like, should you be the guy who's giving people advice? He even says in his own book, no, I shouldn't have been, but I did anyways because I don't give a fuck. And that's why his philosophy, and that worked out for him, which is why his philosophy in life is stop giving a fuck, stop trying. And that's not, and the thing is the reality is it boils down to luck. Whether Mark Manson would like to admit that or not, I really don't. That's where I don't give a fuck is, yeah, you got lucky, bro. Like, that's what it was. You came in on the self-help scene when the self-help scene was exploding, and you came in with a wonderful talent for being able to speak and write. You are funny. You are charismatic. You are a great communicator, and you took all these really important, useful talents and used them, but you were at the right place at the right time. And these talents, albeit you certainly worked at them and you used them to your advantage, they were given to you. Okay. Just like all talents are. And so, no, you got lucky to some extent. Now, does that mean he didn't work hard? No, of course he worked hard. Does that mean he wasn't smart about the decisions he made? No, of course he was. It was clearly the smart decision for him to quit his job as a stockbroker or whatever and instead get into self-help. That was clearly an intelligent decision. But there's a lot of people in the world that are making what they feel like are intelligent decisions, and they end up not being intelligent decisions. There's a lot of people in the world who are working their ass off and they still don't get anywhere. The reality, man, is luck is involved to some extent. And so Taoism is beneficial in the idea that, it helps you, I guess, in a way, it teaches you to expect a little bit of luck out of the world. And when the world isn't lucky, it expects you to it teaches you to go with the flow. It teaches you to roll with the punches, which is incredibly important. It's incredibly important to be able to look at the bright side of things and stay optimistic in life, even when things are down, and stay hopeful that things are going to go good. And for me, that was really important advice that I definitely need to utilize more in my life. So I do appreciate that aspect of it. I don't think it is important, but the big thing that stood out to me with this book that I really loved, what the Tao of Pooh, was the use of the Winnie the Pooh characters to display these particular aspects of human personality that it's easy to fall into. Because to me, I see myself falling into almost every single one of them, right? I guess I did never look up what Tigger stood for. That was the one that I think I missed, right? On that list of who stands for what. Does Tigger represent? And Tao of Pooh. That was the one I can never remember what Tigger represents. See, now we're just getting this guy's. Hyperactive and overconfident. Hyperactive, overconfident. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, I said pride, prideful. Tigger was pride. Yeah, see, that's what I said, Cuter. That's what I thought it was. But I got it a little wrong. It's overly confident, which kind of is pride, but they are two slightly different things. But it is hyperactivity and over self-confidence, overly self-confident. So that, and so for me, like I can look at these different personality traits, hyperactivity and over self-confidence, cleverness, uh, over and too much emphasis on being smart or having knowledge without wisdom and learning from experience, being afraid or experiencing self-doubt like Piglet, or being pessimistic like Eeyore. And then of course, the just going with the flow, that is Pooh, being simple and going with the flow. I can take all these personalities and it was easy. It's a great way for me to remind myself how not to be. Because to me, it just very plainly spelled it out. I looked at that and I was like, bro, I'm a fucking piglet ass Eeyore. That's what I am. Dude. I'm just a piglet ass pissing and moaning, self-doubt, crybaby Eeyore right now. That's what I thought when I read this book. I was like, yeah, dude, like I need to stop being so pessimistic about the world and I need to show a little bit more self-confidence in myself and being a little bit less afraid of things not turning out good, like Piglet. And so less like Piglet, right? And that really, it sounds funny, but that struck such a huge chord with me that nowadays when I'm getting pessimistic, I can tell myself, don't be a fucking Eeyore. I say that to myself. I'm like, I'm being such a fucking Eeyore right now, or Cutie Pie. I remember you and me having a conversation where you were talking about somebody like at work or something, and I was like, oh, she sounds like an Eeyore. And here I remember telling you about that. Because yeah, like I look out for the Eeyore in people because I saw the Eeyore in myself. I'm like, oh no, I'm an Eeyore. That's the worst you can be, or Piglet. There's times where like I get afraid to do something or there's self-doubt creeps in. I'm like, God, I need to stop being such a fucking Piglet. I can do this. And that having that set up there was very important for me. I never saw myself as a Tigger or a rabbit. I never tried to be too clever for other people. I never saw wanting to try to outsmart or manipulate people was never a thing that I was into, which is kind of what Rabbit's thing is. And then I was never so confident that I overstepped what I was capable of doing. That was definitely not my issue. I was more on the Piglet side of things where I had too much self-doubt and was afraid to go out and try new things because I figured I would just fail anyways. But I did definitely a little bit of Owl in there too, where I do put a lot of emphasis on knowledge. And definitely needed to take a step back and understand, like, yeah, just because you read a bunch of books doesn't mean you're fucking smart. So you were a rabbit once, huh? That's interesting. You were clever and manipulative is what you're saying, yeah? Yeah, well, see, it's good to be able to pick that out in a way that's not, I guess, offensive to yourself, right? Oh, you mean Tigger. Overconfident. Yeah, for sure. I definitely know Tiggers in my life, for sure. I don't think you're so much a Tigger now. I don't think you're a Tigger now. You do seem a little bit more like a Pooh to me. You're a Winnie the Pooh. You're a Pooh. I mean that with all the love in the world. Yeah, you definitely seem way more Winnie the Pooh nowadays. You do. You got a little Piglet in you, I feel like. You got some things where you got a little self-doubt, for sure. Yeah, but I do that too. Like I said, I keep an eye out for myself with the whole Piglet thing because that's definitely spoke to me a lot when I first read that book. I was like, fuck, I'm being a fucking little Piglet. And so that's your story of overconfidence. You were at an Airbnb and they didn't have a rice cooker and you were overconfident and you were like, well, I can cook rice without a rice cooker. You're so cute, hot stuff. I think the Tigger means more like, well, I mean, I guess that is overconfidence. Yeah, for sure. You did learn your lesson. I think I remember you telling me that story the one time you tried to cook rice without a rice cooker and it didn't go so well. Yeah, and it didn't go well, did it? The rice cooking didn't turn out so well. Yeah, I forgot that I'm on my rant screen. So you thought you could cook without a rice cooker, and for breakfast everyone wanted you to cook the rice, and you were like, "Fuck, I was drunk last night." Oh, it came out perfect. Well, I think you're I think you're not getting the point of the whole Tigger thing. If you got it, then you had the ability to do it. You know, Tigger, his thing in the book, like you do have to read the book because in his thing in the book is he gets himself into situations he can't get himself out of, like climbing the tree and getting stuck. The point is Tigger overestimates what he's capable of doing and thinks he can do everything that everyone else can do, and then it turns out he can't. And so, you know, although your story is hilarious because it's in a very cute way, kind of misses the point. You're adorable like that. The whole point is that being a Tigger is when you're so confident that you put yourself in situations that you actually can't figure out, and you end up hurting yourself or somebody else. You know, think someone who is like, oh yeah, I can ride a motorcycle. Then he goes and rides a motorcycle and breaks his leg. That's a Tigger. That's being a Tigger. You not you thinking you could cook rice without a rice cooker, and then your friends saying, oh, you cooked the rice, and you'd be like, oh no, and then you cook the rice and it ends up perfect. Was you not being a Tigger, it was you being a Pooh Bear. You were like, oh yeah, I can cook the rice, and then you cook the rice. So cutie pie for the win. Yeah. Well, you got lucky though. Again, like that's all Taoism does have that in there, and that's an important aspect. That's kind of what I was actually going for was the subtle art of not giving a fuck does kind of touch on the idea that a lot of people do just get lucky. And it is important that you don't rely on luck because, you know, you never know when it's going to come around. You know, the power of now doesn't really concern itself with anything in that topic matter. This is where I disagree a lot with Jocko Willink, is he would almost completely void the idea of there being any such thing as luck, or that luck itself is not even remotely an important aspect of success. Whereas the Tao of Pooh totally says, oh no, that's the thing about Pooh, is Pooh gets lucky. And Pooh gets lucky because Pooh is just being himself. He's just being simple. He's just doing what he was meant to do. And in doing so, he gets lucky. And I like that idea. I really do wish that the world was that way, where I could just be myself and suddenly the fucking stars would align and things would be wonderful. But I tried that at one point in my life, and it doesn't work that way. You just being yourself. If your self is fucked up because you have emotional issues, then no, being yourself is going to ruin your life. And that's horrible fucking advice. But that is what the Tao of Pooh is saying, though. The Tao of Pooh, one reason I do like it, and one reason it's different from a lot of the other self-help books, is it does say, like, hey, no, luck is a big part of it. And, you know, again, Tao would say you need to totally, you know, not rely on luck, but trust the fact that you will get lucky if you just remain simple and be yourself, which is what you did with the rice. You were just simple. You were like, fuck it, I can wing it, whatever. I'm going to try it. And you did it, and you got lucky, which, again, the Taoist philosophy says happens a lot to Winnie the Pooh. So you're just proving my point here, Cutie Pie. You're just a big, giant Pooh Bear, right? A big fucking lucky Pooh Bear. That's what you are. And that's awesome. That's good. It's definitely something that I see a lot in you that is very likable. Pooh Bear is a very likable character. He's the most likable out of all 6 or 7 of them. But that concept... No, you're not a big fat Pooh Bear, all right? Not even close. I mean, you do like your rice the way Pooh Bear likes his honey. You guys definitely got that in common. I think if you took your rice away, you would die just like Pooh Bear does. But yeah, so that is a concept that I do appreciate about the Tao of Pooh. I thought you'd like that. That is a concept that I do appreciate about the Tao of Pooh, is it is very honest about that, which is something that you just don't see from a lot of self-help books. They just want to completely void the idea that luck is a thing. And no, luck is definitely a thing. Any motherfucker who got lucky, or who got successful, excuse me, and tells you luck had nothing to do with it, they're just being ignorant or they're lying. Luck absolutely has something to do with it, and that's not a bad thing. It's just being honest with yourself, dude. And you see people do that all the time where they just refuse to admit that they got lucky. So I definitely see the value in hoping for luck and searching for luck. And I do understand the Taoist philosophy of, inviting luck into your life. That is important. I do think that is a thing. I think my little brother is really good at that. To be perfectly honest, Austin has had a lot of really good bouts of luck in the last several years of his life. And a big part of that was he was just, doing whatever he thought the right thing to do was. And I do think he invites a lot of luck into his life with his personality. He's got a very Pooh Bear personality. He's a lot like you, where he's very optimistic. He's unabashedly himself, and he's chill. Like whatever's happening, he's cool with it. I mean, again, like Austin, like Cutie, he's the kind of person where, hey, if he's tired, he's gonna go home. He's not gonna, if everybody's like, oh, we're gonna go do this, he's gonna say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm just gonna go do what I want to do. He's very simplistic like that. He doesn't. I wouldn't say he goes with the Taoist philosophy of going with the flow. He definitely doesn't do that. He's much more on the subtle arts of not giving a fuck thing, where he's like, no, I'm gonna do what I want, and that's that. But because that's him, and he's very simple that way, he knows what he wants and he's going to do it, and that's it. Yeah, he's definitely that way. Absolutely. I do think he invites a lot of luck into his life. So I do think there's a possibility of that. And I think Taoism is a good place to start with that concept. And I think mostly what I got out of Taoism, though, was just understanding these basic personality aspects of a personality and knowing which ones to stay away from, and having just a good representation for that. That was my biggest takeaway, and it definitely helped me in my life whenever I'm feeling moody or being a big crybaby, especially if I'm like looking at other people in my life and like, well, look how much luck they have. I don't got luck. Where's my fucking luck? I remember, oh, I'm being a fucking Eeyore. Can't be a fucking Eeyore, man. Eeyore suck. Nobody likes an Eeyore. They're hard to be around, and they invite the opposite of luck into their life, right? So, yeah, that's where I really do like the Tao of Pooh and think it's enjoyable and would be a good read for everybody. Plus, it's a short read, and that's kind of why I recommend it. Why I put it a little bit above the other three is because it just is very unique. You're never going to find another self-help book that does that. Like I said, pretty much all these self-help books have advice in them that you're going to find somewhere else. The Tao of Pooh is very specific to what it is and very unique. And you can find similar pieces of advice. The Power of Now has similar pieces of advice, and like, oh yeah, just kind of being in now in the moment and appreciating the moment. Yeah, there's some of that in The Power of Now, but the Tao of Pooh is very unique to itself. Its reasons for why you need to be what you're doing is very unique to itself, and it is quasi-religious and somewhat spiritual, which is interesting too. Some people might like that or they won't like that. It might be a pro or a con, but that's why I put it so high up on the list. So there you have it. There's my first 4 books on my self-help book list. I definitely went way longer than I thought I would, which is good. I'm glad that I had a good long stream. I needed to do a little bit longer streams, but mostly I just really enjoyed talking about this subject matter. So to anybody who is watching live, thank you for watching live. Cutie Pie, thank you so much. Bundy, if you're still there, thank you so much for tuning in. I always appreciate your guys' supports and your chats. And to anybody else who just stopped in, if you're still listening, I appreciate you too. Thanks for checking the stream out. To anybody who sees this on YouTube, I hope you enjoy the information and got something useful out of it. I hope I definitely kind of racked your brain, gave you enough information that you can at least look at some of these 4 books and maybe pick one out that might help you out in some specific way in your life, something that gels with your personality. Like I said, all the links to them will be in the description of the video, and there will be a part 2 to this video coming out here soon where I go over my top 4 self-help books. So stay tuned for that. I'll finagle that in sometime next month, right? So this will also be my last Mental Health Monday for at least a week. Next week, I'm not going to be doing any streaming. I'm going to take the week off because I did 4 weeks this month anyways, which is my limit. After that, this next week, I'm going to go ahead and take time to cut up my streams and put a whole bunch of smaller little snippets out there for the TikTokers and the YouTube short folks and all that good stuff. So won't be here next week for my mental health Monday. I will probably restart next week. And I was going to do a whole stream on the Myers-Briggs type identifier or type indicator, because even though it's been pretty heavily disproven, or there's a lot of heavy critics against it, it was another aspect of something I found in my self-help journey that was enjoyable and fun. And I think it does give you a little bit of good insight to yourself. But, it's also a little bit controversial, which, is always good for the stream, doing more controversial things, right? So we might instead do a mental health Monday on just my second self-help book list, since I clearly love doing it so much I can just talk and talk and talk. So, to be continued on that. That'll be announced later, or I'll just do it and you'll find out later. But tomorrow I will be streaming again at 7 p.m. Tomorrow we're going over the history of creepypastas. So if you don't know what a creepypasta is, you should definitely check it out. Most people know what it is. It's at this point, it's kind of old news, but I don't care. I still enjoy talking about it, so I wanted to do a stream on that. So we'll be going over what creepypastas are, how they came into being, and then the first six, or the most important, I guess, creepypastas that came out and helped cement creepypastas as a important aspect of internet history. So we'll be going over all that tomorrow for Terrifying Tuesdays. In the meantime, everybody who's watching, have a wonderful rest of your night. Thanks again for tuning in. I always appreciate it. And anybody watching on YouTube, thank you. I appreciate it. And you guys just have a wonderful rest of your night. And I will hopefully see you tomorrow. Peace.